The Final Frontier. These are your adventures as you explore, seeking out new life and civilizations, expanding your borders and exploiting the resources you find, befriending allies, or exterminating the foes that get in your way.
Contact detected entering sector. Configuration unknown. Assessing. Initiating countermeasures.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. If it is your first time joining us, thank you for taking the time, clicking that thumbnail, checking us out. And if you're a return viewer, then welcome back. If you're wondering, one of those first-time viewers, what in the world is this Star Trek New Worlds thing? It is a turn-based strategy game that we play here online with you, inspired by the rules of Federation Empire as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau, and the map that you will see here shortly is produced through the magic of Vassal. So we're big Star Trek war game, gaming nerd type folks, and we have this turn-based strategy game that we play, and we are bringing you along the week-to-week journey, or most recently, I guess it's every 2 weeks or so, but the journey as we progress through the ever-expanding, progressing campaign between all the players, all the factions in our particular game. For those who are joining us right now, we are at double digits. Thank you so much. Big claps, there we are, for Daniel, Mr. Pew Pew himself, howdy, Bill Smith is in the house, Devin Dean is here, and of course there are many others of you out there. What are we going to be talking about today? Well, I did something a little bit different today. I put our galactic news in the video description, so if you had taken a moment, and if you'd seen the video description, then you have a sense of what is happening. But let me give a quick summary of what is happening in today's story. We have, as if you've been following us for for any number of episodes here, you know that the Paravians are in a pitched battle of survival with the Borak, the brutal barbarian Borak. Those bastards are attempting to unseat the Paravians from their home turf. However, they come with good reason, as they are themselves being shished away from the northern faction, or the northern space, pressured out by the Carnarvon, Lyran, and ISC Alliance. But they're not the only ones having exciting things happening. No, the Federation are having some visitors. The Andromedans have dropped in. You've seen the Andromedans kind of pop in and out every once in a while, and they are sort of the shadow in the background, big baddie. And apparently they've popped into Federation space this time. Last time they were in the area around the Borak and the Carnarvon, but now they've popped in to say hello, and we'll see what happens there. Other than that, we've got some very exciting things with the Klingons, with new ships hitting the streets. We've got conflicts brewing between the Tholians and, or the Kzinti, the Klingons, and the Tholians are somehow involved. And more exciting things as the player dynamics play out. But without further ado, why don't we just jump into the economics tab before we get a word from our sponsor. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the money. That's right, honey. Over on the side there, you will see the latest economic numbers. And of course, the graph to the bottom of me and to the side. You will see the ever increasing, almost accelerating trajectory of the Klingons in black, the Carnivons in green, as they climb ever higher, distancing themselves from everybody else. I mean, look at that. The Carnies are at 134, the Klingons 143.5. Those economies are crazy, for sure. But as we go down or up, respectively, we've got the Federation with a little uptick at 108, the Kzinti and the Hydrans floating around that 100 mark just below it. You've got a group in the 80s, the Lyrans, the Iocene, the Borak, and then of course below them is the Tholians, but they are not the bottom of the barrel, so to speak, economically. No, that is the Paravians, who are getting pounded by those brutal barbarians, the Borak. As you can see, the trajectory on the graph is epic. And what's interesting is, as we will see here in a moment, despite the fact that the Borak are driving the economy into the ground for the Paravians, they are doing that faster than they can build their own logistical supply to be able to take advantage of those now freed up resources. So we'll have to see how this sort of evolves as we're going forward, but very much an interesting series of events. Right. Well, I think perhaps this might be a good time as I prepare myself. There we go. Too much time off makes Tony slow on the live stream. All right, let's take this moment and slide into the galactic news. Hi, welcome to the Galactic News. GNN. If it's not true, well, we're not telling. 5 houses alike in dignity. With the new trade route created between Vulcan and Hydrax, the Federation has now created economic ties with 1, 2, 3, 4 other empires: Paravian, Hydran, Kzinti, and the Lyrans. Officials from the Federation government are touting peace and trade as an alternative to the widespread destruction occurring between less logical species. Perhaps they will be able to bring a lasting peace to the galaxy based on economic self-interest and the odd Terran toy known as a Beamy Baby that has become so popular with feline customers. From ancient Grudge break to new mutiny. After years of rising tensions, open war has finally broken out between the Kzinti and Tholian empires. Oh, I got that wrong earlier. Kzinti officials are blaming Tholian commando teams for the data breach that took place on base station Quebec 50. While Tholians flatly deny the charges, they have responded that they will not be bullied into concessions. One unverified statement from a Tholian captain stated that Tholians will be glad to singe the fur of anyone foolish enough to violate their sovereignty. Strong words, unverified Tholian captain. Strong words, indeed. And now, there we are, a word from our sponsor. Uh-oh, did your latest beam up leave you feeling out of sorts? Or even completely unsorted? Don't worry, space traveler, we've got just the thing to get you back in phase. Introducing Transponder Triage Tonic, the fastest, most effective way to treat all your transporter troubles. Whether you're missing a limb, out of sync with your molecular matrix, or just feeling a little scrambled, Transponder Triage Tonic will have you fully rematerialized and ready for action. With Transponder Triage Tonic, you will be feeling like yourself again in no time. Our patented formula works at the quantum level to realign your atoms correctly, phase variance, and make sure that you're all in one piece. Literally. Don't let a transporter accident ruin your next away mission. Whether you're a daring captain or a brave redshirt, Transponder Triage Tonic is here to save the day. So next time your atoms get a little scrambled, or you have a beaming thirst for the taste of grapefruit and liver, just grab a bottle. Because unlike your unfortunate beaming victims, we are always in the right place at the right time. Warning, not a substitute for proper transporter calibration. Results may vary by species and dimension. Consult your chief medical officer for more information. Oh my God, Daniel. Terrible. Oh my God, okay. Oh my God. Oh. And we're back. Damn you, Daniel. That was... God. All right. Where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. In these uncertain times, not even peaceful minor worlds are safe from the ravages of war. Kzinti forces mounted an invasion of the Vudar world of Parthius of the northern border. I gotta wipe away a tear. Oh my God. While the Parthian... Let's try that again. Focus. In these uncertain times, not even peaceful minor worlds are safe from the ravages of war. Kzinti forces mounted an invasion of the Vudar world Parthius on their northern border. While the Parthian navy mounted a spirited defense, they were no match for the waves of drones that eventually smashed into their orbital defenses, reducing them to atoms. Parthius is now a protectorate of the Kzinti Empire. Further north, the Lyrans conducted a major raid against the Romulan homeworld. While the attack was eventually driven back, major damage was done to the fleet at Romulus. Further attacks are expected, and it is unknown how long the brave Romulan fleet can keep their massive Lyran neighbor at bay. Let's slip the dogs of war. As the Borak invasion of Paravian space grinds on, the blue tide seems to be unstoppable. More pinpoint strikes against bases and logistics have taken place, leaving the Paravian economy devastated. A major raid on the Paravian homeworld left several ships heavily damaged on both sides. While the Borak have a powerful economy capable of replacing such losses, analysts believe that the loss of every Paravian ship is a major setback. Are we seeing the final phases of the Battle of New Paravia? Only time will tell. And that, my friends, has been the Galactic News. All right. Oh, my God. Oh, God. Geez. Daniel, you dink. So, for those of you who don't know, our GM for the New Horizons campaign, Daniel, is the wordsmith that crafts the Galactic News Network reports. And above being a pun master himself and driving a lot of alliteration in there, there are times when, he gets quite creative. And of course, this time drove me to tears with laughter, obviously. Okay, well, that was wonderful. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that wonderful breakdown of Tony's inability to hold it together. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. All right, let's just take a moment right now, and I see some chat. Pop out chat, thank you. Let's see what you have to say. Okay, so picking up from where Daniel was doing the... We've got Big Slow Target saying hello or hi. Was it big plays in the house, Smitty says. Ooh! I'm trying to read this. Dargan Noctum Voidstar. Yes! Now that is a name. Dargan Noctum Voidstar. DNV. I'm going to call you the DNV just for short. DNV says, good afternoon. Hey, Bill. Hello, Dragon. Big Slow Target says, yo, ladies and gentlemen, a coffee has been fired. I won't lie. Today has been a bit of a grind getting going, so the coffees are very much appreciated. I'm going to take a quick sip to celebrate while that populates. Give me 1 second. Oh, yes. So apparently fired by our good friends, the Andromedan antagonist. Well, we'll talk about you in just a moment. And as you can see, the bar down below is making its way slowly across the screen. It is now 1/4 of the way across, meaning that we have 1, 2, 3 more coffees as goals for today. I guess I put out the challenge to you. Can you keep me caffeinated enough to get through to the end of this live stream? I challenge you. Are you able to fire those photons of caffeinated goodness, the elixir of life, the thing that keeps me pepped and ready to go? I will take that challenge, you say. Bring it on. Fire those photons. My shields can handle it. Let's go. And speaking of which, if you are looking to arm those photon torpedoes in your tubes, then please feel free to head over to coffee.com/newworlds and fire that one-time photon of caffeinated goodness. Or if you want to join us on our Discord channel for the banter, the back and forth, and the witty repartee, then you can also hit the Coffee and Discord tier there and join us after the live stream. All right, so where were we? Oh, yes, big slow target. The Klingons shift of massive forces away from the Tholian wormhole, and they're now fully functional guard YDKs, means a lot of force can be sent to the Kzinti border. They better not mess with the rocks. Am I seeing an alliance brewing between the Klingons and the Tholians? Are they going to squish some kitty cats? Whoa, didn't see that coming. That being said, there's a lot of alliances or cliques, shall we say, forming in this particular game. So nobody knows what could happen next. What would happen if, this is a random crazy thought, what if the Klingons, the Tholians, and another third faction, don't know who that would be, got together and pressed against the rest of the map? I don't know. I think there might be something to that, but we'll see. We'll see. Oh, Biggest Low Target says, and I mean Tholian YDKs being complete, and Tholian forces can move now. Oh, yes. Daniel is muha-haing his way through the furious laughter he instilled upon me. And the George Duffy's in the house. Welcome, George. And, of course, Smitty is in the welcoming committee saying hello to everyone. Okay, so we've got our galactic news. We've got our daily sponsor. We've got our economics overview. Now, it would seem the only thing left is to really just get to the map. Is that what you want? Is that what I'm hearing from people? You want to see the map? You want to see the map? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you what you want. Here we go. We're going to the map. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. The energy level, the dynamic today is just a little different. I'm a little crazy. All right. So here we are on the map, and just before we start circling ourselves around and figuring out what is going down, I just thought I'd start with map, please. He says, yes. Well, I'll give you what you want, what you really want. Can't even say that normally. Obviously, my mouth needs to do some exercises. But let's talk about fleet cap right now. And again, fleet cap just being the sort of the count of ships, fleets, and various things that folks have at their disposal. So we'll start off with just alphabetical here. We'll go with the Borak. They have 116 total ships in their fleet. I'm trying to remember what the number was before, but it's an ever-increasing number at this point. 221 is their total attack factor, 452 defense with a fleet cap of 480. And again, for those who are joining us for the first time, if the fleet cap and the defense factor, total defense factor, don't match, that typically means that there are some crippled ships in the fleet. So we'll see how that goes. But 452 defense, fleet cap 480. Couple cripples out there, and we're going to repair those. The Cardavan, the biggest military force in the game, 249 total ships. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, they are the first faction. That's right, words come easily to me apparently. Faction in the game to crack 1,000 on the defense factor. They have 1,033 in the defense factor column. OMG. 1,039 is their total fleet cap, and of course their attack factor, just about half of that, at 594, almost 600. Yowza. I don't even know if the Klingons can contest that, but we'll see. All right, the Federation is sitting pretty at 108. That's like practically their economy. 108. Isn't their economy 108? Hold on. Let me just take a quick look. I could swear their economy is 108. It's 108. So their fleet cap, total number of ships, matches their economy. Well, that's an interesting dynamic. And attack factors, 287, 448 defense, and of course the fleet cap that matches. The Hydrans are the next on the list. Hydrans have 102 total ships, so that's now 3 factions in a row over 100 ships, with 215 attack, 422 defense, and a fleet cap that matches. The ISC also over 100 at 114, just below the total ship count for the Borak, but exceeding by leaps and bounds the total attack factor at 329 and a defense factor of 513. Fleet cap 517. The Klingons, the next number 2 size military in the game. Interesting dynamic here. So they have 188 ships versus the Carnivon's basically 250. So that's an interesting dynamic. But note the difference in attack and defense factors. The attack factors for the Klingons, despite lower numbers of ships, is higher than the Carnies at 694. So they're essentially, well, they are right on the money, 100 attack factor more potent than the Carnies. However, their defense factors are noticeably less. Carnivons have over 1,000, and the Klingons are at 888. Now, that's a dynamic for Klingon ships. They tend to over-index on attack factors, especially those E4Ms, those little tricky bastards. Those E4Ms are kicking it, over-indexing on attack factors. And but Klingon ships now, as they're coming out, are going to have, you're going to see in the M era as we go forward, they will typically, not always, but typically be more, have higher attack factor numbers than defense. So we'll see how that goes going forward, but very interesting to see how this evolves, the Klingons and the Carnivon, respectively. All right, the Kzinti, the now belligerents, or perhaps the Klingons are supporting the Tholians, I'm not sure. Anyways, the Kzinti, now in a state of war, have 99. The first faction so far with less than 100 total ships. Now, don't get me wrong, the Kzinti are at 99. They're practically there. But interesting to note that everybody at this point, other than the Kzinti, are at the sweet number of 100. It would seem somebody fired a coffee. I'm just getting a notification, but nothing happened on the screen. Interesting. I think I'm going to have to fix that. Ladies and gentlemen, a couple have been fired. Woo! Okay. It looks like we've got Tholian cops have fired a coffee. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the granite rock fans that we have. I mean, rock fans. Here we are. And then Burn Visser has fired a coffee. Thank you very much. We are at, according to the coffee, what I'm seeing here, coffee support is at 75%. The bar graph on the screen does not match. I'll have to go into the back end after this broadcast and figure out why that didn't fire, because as you know, it should be firing. All right, cheers to all of you. Oh, yes. So from this perspective, one more coffee to go, and we are fully energized. Can you fire that last photon? Can you finish me off? Not like that. Can you finish the job and get her done with that fire, that final photon fired my way? All right, let's talk about the Lyrans. Ladies and gentlemen, I would argue they are the third. I don't even have to argue. It's just quantitatively true. They are the third largest military in the game at 153 total ships. Ooh. 153 total ships with 426 in the attack factor column, 679 with a fleet cap of 704. Yes, everybody, welcome Burn Visser back to watch again. Ladies and gentlemen, Burn is in the house. What's that I hear? Lots of applause. Welcome, Burn. All right, 153 total ships. The Lyran's number 3 in the house. And one thing we can discuss a little bit more later when we dig into the Lyran's this turn. The Lyrans are in a really advantageous spot when it comes to the ships that they get and when they get them. I would argue, with the exception of the Klingons right now, the Lyrans are either the number 2 or competing for number 1 at least when it comes to the best portfolio of ships that they can field. So the Lyrans are kicking butt and taking names, and really, I think, are in the sweet spot for the game. They're in their there's that song, My Pretty Girl Era. So they're in their pretty girl phase, shall we say. They are blossoming. Not Blossom the show. And I know you know what I'm talking about. Okay, let's keep going. The jokes are just not landing today. That's okay. We can just moan and groan at my inability to execute a good, funny line. Paravians, ladies and gentlemen, have 61 total ships. Of course, we understand they're getting ground into the dust, but they have an epic defense. We'll talk about that later. So 61 total ships, 120 attack factor, 236 defense with a fleet cap of 260. Now, interesting to compare the Paravians to the Borak, because of course they're in a tussle right now. There's a 100-point difference in attack factor between the two. There is essentially twice as many ships on the Borak side, and the defense factors is just a little bit less than twice. So it's an interesting dynamic, and we'll talk about more the Paravian situation. It's going to be very interesting to see how that rolls out as we go forward. The last player faction on our list is the Tholians. Tholians are at 132 total ships. So keeping in mind, with the exception of the Paravians, because, understandably they're getting beaten into a bloody pulp, the only faction not to be at 100 ships, and we could really consider it 100 ships because 99 is pretty much right there. Every other faction is at 100 or more. That's sort of the stage of the game we're at. And for context, in previous games that we've played, getting to 100 ships has been a challenge. A combination of size of empires, total economy, and things like that. So I asked this question to you. Let me finish off with the Tholians, and then I'll come back to a question. Okay, Tholians that are 132 total ships. 234 is their total attack factor. Interesting. Well, they got more ships than the Borak and bigger attack factors and bigger defense factor. Wow, Borak really are the suckiest faction right now. Ooh. 132, 234, 577, matching their fleet cap. That is what that looks like. All right, let me slide back to the chat real quick and ask this question. As I'm sitting here cupping my warm brew of caffeinated goodness, the elixir of life, the thing that lubricates my larynx. Here we go. I asked a question. All right. This is something that we've talked about on our Discord channel, so if you'd like to participate in that, you know where to go. coffee.com/New Worlds, and where you are. But let's ask the question. In a game like this, and this particular game, New Horizons, is a little bit bigger scale and size than previous games. Previous games rarely saw economies over 100. And correspondingly, the size of everyone's empire was not as big. So the overall scale of everything involved was just a little bit smaller. But we still had approximately the same number of players. So here's the question. In a game where you have more money than you know what to do with, and certainly that's true for the Klingons and the Carnarvon, is it more fun as a player to have everything you want all at once and do whatever it is you want to do? Or is it more fun to play a game of scarcity, essentially, where there's never enough, or very rarely ever enough, to get everything and do everything you want to do? And you always have to make choices between doing A, B, or C, or whatever it is. So essentially that's, do you want to play in a playground of abundance where you get everything you want? Or do you want to play in a playground where you're constantly faced with dilemmas and choices? Dilemmas and choices that are consequential for how you're going to be set up long-term for the rest of the game. Give you an example. In this game right now, I would probably say that most factions have enough money that they can do all the research and development they want, meaning everyone's got all the boxes ticked for every piece of technology they want to do. Whereas in the past, very rarely anyone had that kind of financial freedom. So they had to be strategic about what technologies they wanted to invest in and what capabilities they wanted to unlock as they went forward. Now, of course, you can, if you play the game long enough, everything unlocks anyway, but you want to get ahead of the game or get ahead in research and development to a certain degree. So, in a game where there's abundance and you have more than enough money to spend on everything you ever wanted to build, all the ships you want to build and all the bases you need to build and all that other stuff, or do you play a game, or would you prefer a player experience, I should say, where you've got constant dilemmas you need to face, choices you need to make, and the consequences of those choices will have ramifications for you later in the game. You don't know whether those will be good or bad or what have you relative to your neighbors, but choices. Just an idea, something to think about. I'll let it sit there. Okay, Big Slow Target says, I totally ran out of money last turn. Not being at war economy is a big deal. I'll tell you something else is a big deal. Let's get back to the map before I drop more terrible one-liners and jokes. Let me take a quick sip, lubricate that larynx, and get ready to go. If you haven't heard already, by the way, when you hit the like button, it tickles the YouTube algorithm just the right way. So don't be shy. Let's slide back. And as I'm going back, just hit that like button. Don't be shy. Oh, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on the 14th of September, and we have, as of right this second when I'm looking at the screen, it says 14 concurrent viewers. That's good, at least for this live stream. Do you want to make that number bigger? Tell 2 friends, and let's see how that goes. All right, so we are back on the map. Let's scale in, zoom in. Wow, language, Tony. Wow. Okay, zooming in, sliding over, and up into the corner. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start with our good friends, the Klingons. Why? Because they're the biggest, baddest bunch of boys on the block. My alliteration is terrible. Let's take a look at this consequential wormhole that has everybody all up in a tizzy. As we've seen before, we have a YDK, and it looks like a Y. Let's just take away the shits for a second. Is there... Oh, so no construction going on, but there's a YBS. Looks like completed. There is a YDK. And of course, as we talked about, there is the Tholian border squadron there, along with our R&D team and a tug and a convoy. So let's look at the Tholian border squadron just to make sure that, if you remember last turn, we noted a substantive shift in the total number of, ships that were on there. Tholian border squadron, here we are, walk and chew gum at the same time. All right, let's organize this so it's a little bit easier to visually appreciate. Here we are. Okay, so we have the C4B. As a reminder, the C4 is a Y-era dreadnought. The C4B is the refit that gives it beefier weapons, but the same engines, meaning it moves 4, which is the normal movement rate for a Y-era ship. However, it has the firepower of an M-era ship with 8. They have a total of 17 F4s. F4s are the destroyers for the Klingons, a Y-era destroyer. We have just a couple E2s, which are, again, just frigates of the Y-era, and a D6EM. D6EM, by the way, is a survey ship in the M-era, hence the M at the end of it. But it also has a little EW available for combat. So, for example, if there was an approach battle or a battle at a wormhole, because in our game, wormhole battles are a unique thing. When you come through a wormhole, you essentially have to fight 3 approach battles as you're transiting through the wormhole. So if I'm, in this example, the Tholians are on the other side of the wormhole. So if I was the Tholians and I'm coming through the wormhole, when I come through the wormhole, there are, at a minimum, 3 rounds that I need to fight as I'm transiting the wormhole with the Klingons. Those battles do not include the base. The base is not co-located at the wormhole, so the ships sort of go out, sally forth, and engage the wormhole in a series of approach battles. So when they do that, assuming that would be the case, this D6EM can bring EW to that fight. And as you know, if you've watched the tutorial on combat when we talk about EW, I recommend you take a look at that if you haven't already. Then you know that if you have an EW unit on one side and not on the other, then you get a 1-point die shift, which is quite consequential over the long term of a battle. There's a lot of other things about wormhole battles that we can discuss as well, but it is good, is very good. So, and of course we have this troop freighter here, which is interesting. So what can you do with this troop freighter? 2 things you can do. Obviously, you can do a marine or ground assault on a planet, which is okay. But you can also do marine attacks against bases. And if you haven't seen the base busting video where we did that exact thing, although it was a Borak example with troop pods instead of a troop freighter, a troop transport freighter, I would recommend just go check it out, see how that battle progresses if you're interested at all, and then you can see how that translates. And it's amazing. I had not experimented with troop pods previously in this context. Very interesting to see how effective they are at popping bases. Obviously, you have to get some good rolls or decent rolls, but it's a very effective way to get that result. So just something to think about. Okay, so now that we've seen that there's this collection of stuff on the wormhole, where did all the other ships go? Oh, that's so cool. All right, I'm going to have to go back to that in a second. I'm noticing something that is catching my eye. I'm very interested in learning more about it as we go. All right, so excuse me as I take a quick sip of the clear stuff to clear out my throat there. Okay, so we got a whole bunch of these F4s. Look at that. That can't be... Oh, sometimes the numbers on Vassal kind of confuse me. I'm looking at it like, what? 72? No. Yeah, okay. So there is a total of 24 F4s. 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6. So 24 F4s heading south with a total attack factor of 72. Yowza. And then, of course, somewhere around here, there's got to be a battleship. Is it here? Oh, my goodness. Okay, so the F4s are on their way down. This is the concentration of other ships. So we've got 3 E4... No, sorry. E4Ms. Oh, the numbers, man. 6, 6, 1, 3, 4. 16. Looks like 16 E4Ms, which are the zooped up... That's not a word, Tony. They are the overpowered frigates with a 4 attack, 3 defense. But here's the kicker. The F5s are in play. So F5s are the destroyers, the replacement for the F4 in the M era. These ships are awesome. So he's got 3 of them. Obviously, I'm assuming this is a new build that Strat moved down. So 3, it looks like 3 F5s, 3 F5Ms, and I'm seeing 2 D7s and 1 D6. Note the D7s have the 8 attack, 7 defense versus the straight 7 for the D6M. So very interesting. But there's a battleship somewhere. Where are you? Oh, look at this. A couple more 3 E4Ms, 3 F5Ms, and a D7 and a D6DM. All right, let's talk about the D6DM for a second. Klingons, man, you guys have the best menu of ships in the game, I would argue. Okay, so the D6DM is a drone bombardment ship. So let's just take a second. I can't zoom in on it really anymore, but you can see it's the first counter on the stack here. So D6DM, you'll see in brackets it's got a 4, a little diamond next to it, and then 7. So what does all that mean? The 4 in brackets is the drone bombardment component, which is the missiles basically that it can fire, and it can add 4 attack factor if it was used in that way. Every time you use and we could maybe do a video on this on drone bombardment, but every round of battle that you use drones, you have to pay for them because it's paying for like a really expensive piece of ammunition. So drone bombardment brings extra attack factor into each battle round, but again, you have to pay for it. But also for the D6DM, you see that there is that diamond there, which means it has EW. Now, I'm going to ask Big Slow Target, what is the EW power level of the D6DM? When you use EW with the D6DM, it can't do the drone bombardment concurrently. It's either one or the other because the EW interferes with the missiles and vice versa. So not to say you can't have EW in the battle, you just can't have that particular unit doing EW at the same time as the drone bombardment, or at least that's my understanding. So it has EW. And we're going to find out here. EW2, so it has 2 points of EW. Big Slow Target is telling us. Okay, so it has 2 points of EW. Fantastic. And then, of course, on top of that, it also has 7 attack, 7 defense. That's crazy. Like, it's just so good. It is a fantastic ship. Oh, there's a little thing I'm working on here. It is a fantastic ship. Now, there is one limitation with this particular ship, and it's a production issue. Sorry, I just refreshed the progress bar so we can see that is now working. So there's a problem with the D6D. In this game, there are production limits, like you can only build so many of this or that or what have you. And I'd have to look exactly what the restriction is, but there's only so many EW units and or drone bombardment units that you can build in any one turn. I'm just pulling up the sheet now to see if I can find it. The issue is the D6D counts for both EW as like a scout and a drone bombardment ship. So I'm just looking here. So let's see here. So there's two different kinds of scouts that you can build, size class 3 and size class 4. Counterintuitively, the bigger number is a smaller ship. So size class 4 ships are like destroyers and frigates. Size class 3 ships are like cruisers. So you can build, substitution allowed, use both allowed scouts per year. So if I'm looking at this correctly, if I'm reading it right, you can only build one scout per year. One scout per year means one scout per... Oh, no. Hold on. Excuse me. You can build one scout per turn. All right. So you can build one scout per turn. No problem. Drone bombardment, drone ships, you can only build one per year, with an exception. Substitutions allowed. The Federation can substitute one per turn, the Klingons 2 per turn, the Kzinti 2 per turn by any means. So, what that means to me, as I'm reading it, is that the drone bombardment ship, the D6DM, from the Klingon player perspective, he can only build one per turn. Excuse me. And if he builds that ship, he can't build any other EW units. And if Big Slow Target's bang on with the ability to only build or convert one per year, then that means that if it's a 2 EW unit, there are Klingon scouts, I believe in the M era, that produce as much as 4. So depending on what you want to over-index on, drone bombardment or EW, you got to sort of make a choice. Again, dilemmas, right? Big Slow Target says it is 10.5 EP to build that bad boy, expensive, and 3 to convert it from D7. A D6, excuse me. So yeah, pretty interesting as far as the menu of items that the Klingons can pull from and build is very, very interesting. The D6 DM, I would argue, is one of the most versatile ships in the game writ large, and the Klingons are building them. Okay, let's get back to the map. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? One other thing. Oh, I can't find my cursor. It's lost in my screens. One other thing I'm going to do, which is I'm going to, you saw me making an adjustment on the fly in the background here. I'm just looking. Okay. I'm going to make a slight change, and I'm going to ask you to test something for me in a second. Paste. Boom. Here we go. All right. So you saw that little flicker, the little change in the background. We have one more coffee to go. I would like to test if it's going to fire. I'm going to send a test alert right now. Here we go. Yahoo! Woo! Oh, okay. I got to lock my chair in place. Okay, so the test fire worked. It is ready to go. That was just me doing a test. So ladies and gentlemen, one more coffee ready to go. I need you to fire that final photon and get us to the destination of 4 coffees, fully caffeinated, ready to go. Woo! Bouncing out of the chair. Okay, let's get back to the map. Here we are, D6D rolling down. Where is this battleship, by the way, Big Slow Target? I think you said something about where it is. Where is it? I'm looking. So the B4B battleship is arguably one of the most powerful ships, certainly at this stage of the game. Okay, so it's not in here. Let's see here. It's not there. Was it in a fleet box? And it's an Apocalypse? It's probably an Apocalypse. Klingon. Apocalypse. It's like Battle Group Apocalypse, I believe. No, it's in one of the Martok. There it is. Boom. Yep, there she be. So the B4B, again, the thing about the B4B, like the C4B, any of the ships with this B designation at the end, they are a refit, an upgrade of a previous generation ship. So the B4 is just like the C4, is a fantastic ship, but it's a Y era hull. meaning like, it's got Y-air engines. But the B designation or upgrade gives it better weapons, but the same engines. So it can only move 4, but it can fight like an M ship. So the B4B is fantastic. Now, that being said, he can strat move this bad boy and get pretty close to the same amount of movement that you would get out of an M ship from its operational movement. So operational movement is a different phase in the turn. Yes, I should make a video about that, and I think I will. So we've got the B4B and, of course, this stack of ships. You got 2 D7s, 1 D6, 3 F5s, what do we say, 16 E4Ms. And then, of course, there's other stuff down here. We got another 3 E4Ms, 3 F5Ms, a D7, and D6 DM. Wow. These are like watch out. Klingons are gonna wreck somebody. In a really big way. All right, let's take away the ships real. So we got some bases that are going to be finished in turn 104 spring. I'm just thinking, I'm trying to pull up my turn sheet so I can confirm that 104 spring is in which turn. So, for example, we're in turn 76 right now. 76 is 103 fall. So not this turn, but next turn, those bases will complete at the beginning of the turn. And then we've got all this other stuff down here, which is ships that are ready to explore and expand and keep moving south. It'll be interesting to see the dynamic that evolves between the Lyrans and the Klingons, because obviously you can see they've got a border, but it doesn't go all the way down. Is there a line that's going to be drawn between, like down the India line here, that's going to block it off so the Lyrans have their chunk and the Klingons have their chunk and so on and so forth? Or is there going to be some disagreement about where that line should be or where those ships should or shouldn't be? I don't know. We'll see. It'll be very interesting. Okay, so that's the Klingons as a whole. As I'm going to move on to Lyrans right now, let me know if there's anything else you want to know about them, their Klingons. I'm going to hit the Lyrans, and then I'm going to circle back to the chat because there's a lot going in there. Okay, let's talk about the Lyrans. So the Lyrans, a couple things. One, Lyrans have been building this amazing M fleet in Foremost fleet here. So let's just pull this up. Lyran, Foremost fleet. Yowza. Man, I tell you, I'm getting away from the Lyrans, but I am scared of these kitty cats because they are fierce. Okay, so a couple things. One, we've got a scout being built here. Now you can see the scout is a 2-5. Now, I'll have to get confirmation, but I do believe, based on that defense factor number, that these are size class 4 destroyers or frigates scouts. So that does two things. One, that tells us that the power level on these scouts is going to be lower. So I think it's probably a 1 point or maybe a 2 point scout. And he can build 1 per year or 1 per turn, excuse me. What else we got? We got a total. It's a little hard to see these. Let me scroll these down so you can appreciate the stacks, mad stacks involved. Okay, so we've got a total of 15 of these frigates. Yowza. 3-4, by the way. 3 attack, 4 defense ships. We've got a total of 13 destroyers, as you can see. There are 4 attack, 5 defense. So 3-4, 4-5 as we work our way up the stack. They've got the CLM. Great ship. It has 5 attack, 6 defense. That's notably better than the Borak version, which is a 4-6. And then, of course, we have the CAM, which is their heavy cruiser, at a 7-8. And that is sort of like, that's a good standard cruiser for a lot of folks. In the Y-era, we talked about 4-6 being the sort of ideal sweet spot. There are some ISC ships that had a higher defense factor. Carnarvon ships had a lower attack factor. But some of the other factions, like the 4-6, is a really good cruiser. So the 7-8 is the same thing for the early M era. But look at these command cruisers. These command cruisers are 9-8s. Crazy. 9 attack, 8 defense ships. That is better. Yeah, that's better than the D7. Now, granted, there's a D7C that's coming out that'll be really good. There's a D6L, I believe, which is a command factor, like a command ship for the D6 platform. And those are really good too. But here's the thing. The Lyrans get these guys right away. And this is sort of a game issue that we need to address, that we will after this game is done. We're going to reevaluate the introduction dates for all the different ship types for all the different factions. And we're going to just play with them a bit to find a better sweet spot, because at this point, there's different color and flavor. We'll call it texture. There's different texture with each faction. And so certain factions get ships early or later. Some get different variety of ships earlier, later, or in the middle, and so on and so forth. The Lyrans, in this case, get really good ships right up front. So that's what that looks like. Pretty interesting. And this is such a potent fleet. Let's just look at Compots. So this is Foremost Fleet, and just what's in this fleet alone, Vassal takes a second to populate this tab. The more units on the map, the longer it takes. All right, let's find Foremost Fleet here, and I can just show you how potent it is. All right, let's scroll down for Foremost Fleet. There it is. So there's a total of 41 ships. Look at that, 168 attack factor. That fleet has more attack factor and defense factor, well, at least attack factor, than the entire Borak Navy, the entire Paravian Navy. There are entire factions that don't have as much punch as that one fleet. Crazy. All right. Whew. All right, let's move on from the unbelievable sledgehammer, if you're a Peter Gabriel fan, of Foremost Fleet, and move on to what's happening on the east coast of Lyran space. So this particular constellation of Romulans had been a focal point of some contention between the Borak and the Lyrans. And now it looks like the Lyrans are making good on their desire to kick butt and take names. Okay, so we got Black Claw and Home Fleet. Let's pull these bad boys up. Black Claw. Oh, let's put Home Fleet. That's probably easier to find. There's Home Fleet, and there's Black Claw Fleet. So Lyran, where am I finding Black Claw Fleet? Blood Claw, Black Stripe Fleet, Black Claw Fleet. There we go. Sometimes finding these things is always a challenge. Okay, so this is what we got. We've got Black Claw Fleet with a bunch of crippled frigates and a couple crippled YCLs and a couple crippled YCLs in Home Fleet. So this fleet, it looks like both of these fleets, attack the Romulans at Romulus. So let's pull up the minor faction empires. Woo! There's a lot of them there. Okay, let's put that there so it's sort of right beside. And we're going to scroll down to the Romulans. You can see them right here. And, we're looking for the stack of cripples. So we can see that the Romulan Romulan Empire has a Vulture, which is a dreadnought in the Y era. Kingbird, which is a command cruiser for the Romulans. They have 3 cruisers, which are 4.5s. So their Romulan cruisers are notably weaker. And then we have 11 destroyers, which are called Hawks. But looks like they're all crippled except for one. So 10 crippled Hawks. We have 3 crippled frigates of 9. You can see there. They're called Snipes. That's the frigate for the... Boom, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Someone needed to hit me with a bolt of caffeine. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached 100%. Thank you very much. I'm going to take a quick sip. Oh, yes. All right, where's the chat? Where's the chat? Ladies and gentlemen, MTech for Everybody has fired a photon in my general direction. 100% of our goal has been reached. Thank you very much. Here we are. Hoorah! Oh, yes. Now, because of that wonderful and timely jolt of caffeinated goodness, I am now noting the number of Falcons in their fleet. For those of you who are not literate with the Romulan repository of bird-like phenomenon, the Falcon is what's known as a mauler. If you are a fan of Federation Empire, you know what that means. That means that they can deliver targeted punches of photonic power, or in this case, plasma power, directly on to a target. They can do directed damage at 1-to-1, or basically reduce the ratio by 1 depending on what they're attacking. So a Falcon or any Mauler in the game can do directed damage at 1-to-1 to any target if they are doing, whereas normally directed damage is done 2-to-1. If they're targeting someone in formation bonus or in the backfield, so rescue tugs, drone bombardment ships, scouts, and various other things, they can do directed damage at 2-to-1. Now, with the way directed damage works is that the attack factor on the counter, which for the Y Falcon is a 7, they can do 7 points of that kind of directed damage. Anything in excess of that is at the normal 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 respectively, but they can get 7 points of it at 1-to-1 or 2-to-1. And as you can see, there were 2 Falcons, and I'm curious to know in the battle if both Falcons were in the battle line, because they have to be in the battle line to do what they need to do. That might have been 14 points of damage of directed damage to any one target. Now, if I'm the Romulans and I have 2 Falcons in my battle line, depending on how much attack factor I can generate, I'm doing directed damage on that command ship. So, for example, the Lyrans had, I believe, a heavy dreadnought. Yeah, there's a 6-8 right there. So the heavy dreadnought has 8 defense. If it's in formation bonus at 3-to-1, that makes it 24 damage to cripple it. So that's going to be really hard. However, if you have 2 Falcons in your battle line, that means you can do up to 14 damage, assuming you can generate that much damage, 14 damage in directed damage to the heavy dreadnought. However, in order to successfully do that, you can't just do 14 damage and say, oh, 14 is more than half of your 16 damage that I need to create to cripple you. Therefore, you need to cripple that unit. No. The rules are very specific. You need to be able, through directed damage, to cripple it or destroy it if it's already crippled, to be able to do that. So in this case, you could do 14 damage of 2-to-1, and then there's 2 points left. If you can generate an extra 6 overall points of damage, you can finish it off with 3-to-1. Obviously, I'm going to guess they weren't able to generate that much damage, so 6 plus the 14 means they would have had to generate 20 points of damage to direct damage that heavy dreadnought. So if they couldn't do 20 points of damage in a turn, which they probably couldn't because they're in the Y era, then no joy to hit the heavy dreadnought. But boy, could they go to town on all the cruisers and everything else. They could have just annihilated the command cruisers and the cruisers, even at 6. At 1-to-1, whew, that can get bad. Now, you can only direct damage 1 target at a time, so maybe that's how that worked out. But either way, it is crazy. Daniel Eastland says, we might need to do a tutorial on Maulers so Tony isn't spreading propaganda about Romulan capabilities. I don't know what he's talking about. Crazy. All right, so let's close out the Romulans. So as we see, there is some back and forth going on here, but noting how much damage was done to the Romulans, this is sort of a mirror image of what's happening with the Paravians down south, which is they're getting assaulted by a much numerically superior force. The only difference here is that the Romulans, they have enough to be able to fend off perhaps 1 attack at a time. I could argue that the Lyrans could probably take it home if they wanted to. They could go all the way. But, I mean, the Romulans here have, 8 ground bases, a YDK, and the fleet that they have. There's still some more to go. All right, let's pull that out there. So we've got all this going on here. And of course, just from a optics perspective, you can see the reach that's going on here with the Lyrans reaching into Borak space. Now, this is all part and parcel of the previous arrangements that had been made with regards to the organized withdrawal. Yeah, organized withdrawal of the Borak faction from what is currently known as Borak space. But anyways, it's slowly creeping back, and we'll see how that goes. But very interesting to see how this is sort of evolving. Very, very interesting. Okay, so that's the... Oh, well, let's talk about a little bit down here what's going on. Again, just more base construction, survey ships doing surveying. Basically, the Lyrans are just trying to build out their economy. Obviously, 3rd largest military, not the same economic status, but give it time and they can get there. It's just again, it's just a matter of time. Can they claim, can they discover, through conflict, can they conquer enough assets to become the third most powerful economy in the game, currently held by the Federation, that particular milestone. Okay, let's go back to the chat and see what you are talking about. Okay, so we got we're gonna pick it up with the discussion around EW. So Big Slow Target says he was talking about the D6DM. Thank you. So he was saying that it produces about 2 points of EW. We're talking about the cost of drone bombardment. So Smitty is saying that it's 1 EP per drone attack factor added, or sorry, 0.1 EP. So if you had 10 rounds of 4 attack factor being added, that would be 4 EP you'd have to spend just for that one battle. It can add up over time. We talked about the cost of it. We talked about what you can build per turn. So Daniel says, we have a tech tree. Initially, you can build 1 scout per year. Then you can research 1 small scout per turn and 1 size class 3 scout per year. So, I was looking at a different sheet. So the player info sheet, which is sort of a document of where our all homebrew rules are. And so that's how that goes. Different from the tech tree, so you might have technological milestones in your progression that unlock certain capabilities and so on. What do we got? Daniel Easton says the rule for scouts initial tech is sub convoy. Oh, you can substitute or convert 1 scout per year, so you can only have 1 per year by any means, be it building or converting. Big Slow Target says B4 plus the drone ship plus the D6s plus the Admiral means enough damage to direct cripple a 16-point defense unit. Let's skip SIDS. So what he's talking about there is in the base, when you're doing directed damage against a base, bases have what's called SIDS. Starbase Incremental Damage System. That's what that stands for in the rules. So in order to do directed damage on a base, you need to do 4 times, or 4 to 1, the amount of directed damage for each SID. So each SID, with a couple exceptions, but generally speaking, SIDs are 4 points of damage. There's, I think it's bats have 4.5. But basically, SIDs are 4 points of damage. So in order to do a direct damage of a SID on a base, you need to do 16 points of damage. So very clearly, Big Slow Target is engineered an attack force that allows him to be able to direct damage bases, arguably without engaging the fleets that protect it, and just devastate the bases. So if you can do, if it's a YBS, which is relatively weak, but it gives you EW in a fight, if you can direct damage the base over 3 rounds, because you can only ever do 1 SIDS. Well, I mean, you could do more than 1 SIDS, but directed damage, you'll do 1 SIDS at a time. So you'll do 1 SIDS at a time. If you can do 3 battle rounds of that on a YBS, then all of a sudden you've eliminated the YBS, and now there's no EW. And if he has an EW ship in the formation, now he gets the EW advantage. And the ships that are retreating, assuming that at some point they would retreat, they can't retreat without pursuit, assuming he would want to pursue them, because the base is gone. So if there is a base, it can shield you from pursuit, but if there is no base, because you've destroyed it through directed damage, boom, you're gone. So very, very interesting. EW don't work when transiting wormhole. No ship specials do. So here's the interesting thing. Paul Williams is making a reference to when you transit a wormhole. So when you are the faction or the it's got to be the attacker. So if the attacker is going through the wormhole, from a narrative perspective, the wormhole wreaks havoc on all your special capabilities in a ship. So that's scouts, drones, whatever it is. So you can't use any of those special abilities when you're transiting, or when those ships are going through the wormhole. And we have different technologies about how many ships can transit a wormhole at a specific time. So again, tech tree, as you progress through the tech tree, you progressively get the capability to transit more and more ships per battle round. So let's say the first battle round, you've got 4 ships that you can transit. You transit those ships. Once they've finished that first round of battle, now they're on the other side of the wormhole, and then those ships can start using their special abilities. So if it's a drone bombardment ship or an EW ship or whatever it is, at that point, and only at that point, can they start using their special abilities. Now, for the Tholians, by example, just because they're on the other side of that wormhole with the Klingons, one special thing about the Tholians is their special ability is something known as a pinwheel and webs. They can't do any of that while they're transiting. But if they have ships that make it to the other side and survive that second round of battle, they can. So, thought experiment. Let's say a fleet of 10 ships, and let's say the technology is you can transit 10 ships at a time. So let's say you transit 10 ships through the wormhole. And one of the features about transiting a wormhole is that the ships that are going through, the defender can do directed damage 1-to-1 on any of the ships that are going through. It's not, you can't, and it's not like you can just do one ship at a time. You can just direct the bejesus out of them as they're going through. Okay, great. So they're going through the wormhole, and if they get to the other side, and let's say it was a really bad transit for the Tholians, and only half their ships make it through. So they got 5 ships. Well, actually, let's make it 12. So 12 ships transiting, half of them make it through. There's 6 ships that make it to the other side. Okay. So they've made it through the other side, and we start in the next battle round. The 6 ships that survive the transit can then choose to pinwheel, assuming they can. So let's say those 6 ships can pinwheel. Those six ships pinwheel in 2 groups of 3, and let's say one of those pinwheels survives the next battle round. At that point, this is the 3rd round of the transit battle. At that point, they can start using a web. And then that, the effects of Tholian web start to kick in. So it gets a little complicated. I know perhaps my explaining it isn't completely clear, but the idea is that wormhole transits are difficult. They impair your special abilities. But once you get to the other side and you sort of establish yourself, you can really make things happen, and it gets pretty interesting. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see when we have like a full-fledged transit battle next time. It'll be really, really cool. Okay, what else we got here? We did the Lyrans. We'll jump. Oh yeah, sorry. Back to the chat. So somebody was talking about finding the battleship in Apocalypse Fleet. Coffee fired. Thank you for MTech for everybody. Daniel says, we might need to do a tutorial. Yes, okay, yeah. SAFs. Special Attack Force, SAF. So, I'm going to look at my Borak turn and the MSIT. So, Special Attack Forces are SAFs. I'm trying to find it here. Where are you? Anyways, they're a special unit that allows you to do super secret stuff. Maybe we can do a tutorial on those. Why can't I? Oh, I probably can't find it because I can't build them yet. But either way, they're a special. They are a special unit that allows you to do some pretty cool stuff, and do special attacks on bases and various other things. Special Attack Force. There it is. SAF. So we can do maybe a video on that to talk about it. Burn Vesser says, question, are admirals, diplomats, and prime teams purchased with EP? Yes. Or are they awarded via criteria schedule? So, one of the things that comes up often in the discussion around this game, let's set the baseline, and then we'll progress from there. 1, we are inspired by the rules of F&E. This is not F&E. Meaning, there are some rules in F&E, or the way that normal tabletop Federation Empire is played, that doesn't work in a 4X environment. Rules that don't make sense, there are rules that are missing, or like capabilities or features that are missing in a 4X version of this game, hence the home rules that we augment the standard F&E rules with. So we have a document where we talk about all the rules that we are not using, or augmenting, or are including, and so on and so forth. So, in the normal F&E game, you have a schedule of what you can build every turn. You spend EP to buy those ships, but you have a fixed set of ships that you can or can't build. In this game, it's less like that. You have the capability to build certain ships based on the slipways that you have, and in the context of this particular game, the YDKs that you have available, or star bases when those come. So YDKs can build. They're effectively, in the context of this game, they operate sort of like a minor shipyard. They can build 2-point units, or basically they can build frigates, because everybody's frigates are capable to be built at a YDK. So they can build Y-era frigates. When you get to an SBM, starbase in the M era, you can build M-era frigates from there. And then, of course, when you get a full starbase and other superior bases, then you can build full GW ships, frigates from those ships, from those bases as well. So, no schedule. You have the option or the capability to build certain ships, and based on your economy, what you can buy and where you want to build them, you buy what you buy. Admirals, diplomats, and prime teams are special units, and so, for example, I'm just looking at my... Where are you? Looking for my special units. So things that are special units: diplomatic teams, prime teams, R&D teams, and marine general and admirals. You can build them. So, for example, diplomatic teams cost 10 EP to build, prime teams 3, R&D teams 3, a marine general is 5, and admiral is 10. So you can build those, but depending on the tech tree, you can only build them at certain points, specifically like marines and admirals. So we'll see how that goes, how that progresses as we go forward. But hopefully, Burn, that answers your question. You let me know if it did. If it didn't, then you can join us on our Discord channel. We can talk about it some more. Right. I think we're going to jump back into... Let me pop up the chat one more time. Yeah, so let's pop into the map and talk about the Carnies, the ISC, and see what we can get. All right, let's rock and roll. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Carnivan, the boys in green, the howling faction of canine compatriots that are ready to unleash carnage on the galaxy. Let's take a look at, we'll go from the west over the top into the east. I also have 10 ship, one missing from map, Paul says. 100. Paul's like, the Kzinti have 100 ships. Okay, so hopefully. All right. Okay, so we start on the west coast. We see Wolfpack 4 here. Carnivan, Wolfpack 4. Wolfpack. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lose the German accent, Tony. Okay, we got a destroyer and a handful. 4? No. 6. Man. Wolfpack 4, 6, man. Okay, so we have 6 total frigates here. Sitting just, is there a base here? Yeah, sitting on a YDK. This is sort of like the proxy defense force, just sitting there, having a good time. Wolfpack 3 up here, trying to uncover this fog of war hex. You can see they have in Wolfpack 3, command cruiser, drone bombardment destroyer, and a bunch, 10, of frigates. Okay. As we cruise over the top and come down the side, you can see just a couple of survey ships trying to eke out the last fog of war hexes. And as we scroll down, we can see here we've got sort of this line in the sand between the ISC and the Carnivan. And, oh, what's that? Oh, okay, so this is a Gorn third, what's the term? Minor faction, thank you. And it would seem that the Carnivan are claiming resources surrounding the Gorn, and the ISC are right there with them. As we come down here, we can see the Diamond Fleet. They are in the midst of building a YDK. So they'd built a base, now they're building a YDK. Interesting. Okay. I feel like the end is coming. And then, of course, we got... Okay, so let's take away the ships real quick. You can see the YDKs encircling the Borak. Shall we say it's containment pattern alpha? I don't know. Anywho, Diamond Fleet is here. Let's take a quick look at what's in Diamond Fleet. Again, all the, like, when we look at the size and strength of the Carnarvon fleet, I want to say like 80% of their fleet, if not 90%, is like around the Borak. So, Diamond, right? Diamante. So you can see Diamante fleet, Diamond. 2 command cruisers, 3 cruisers, 5 destroyers. Oh, okay. So just 5 destroyers and, come on, behave. 3 drone bombardment destroyers and a total of 13 frigates here. Boom, boom. Over here, we've got Topaz. We'll just move this over. Got Topaz and Ruby fleet sitting here. YDK on this planet. There's a diplomat trying to improve the attitude of this particular planet. They are very stubborn. And there's Ruby and Topaz. So Carnies, we got Ruby and Carnarvon Topaz. There we are. Okay, so these 2 mammoth fleets are right here. Command cruisers, at least 2 of them between the 2 fleets. You've got 5 and 3, 8 cruisers, 2 drone bombardment cruisers, a light cruiser. Oh, another drone bombardment cruiser. So that's 3 drone bombardment destroyers. There are 2. Another random YCA down here. Let's put that there. So we've got 4 plus 5, 9 cruisers. Destroyers, we have 7 plus 7, 14. And then the frigates, we've got 13 plus 6, so 19. Again, mammoth fleet here, about to unload the pain train on everybody involved. What else we got here? We got Sapphire fleet, so Carnies. There we are. Carnies Sapphire fleet. Whoa, it's not what we want to do. Okay, so Sapphire fleet is sitting right here, and this is what's in it. Command cruiser, 3 cruisers, 2 drone bombardment cruisers. Looks like 2 destroyers and a collection of 5 frigates. Here on Sapphire fleet, we have the last of the Carnarvon goodies. Sapphire fleet. Oh, that was Sapphire fleet. Excuse me. What was this one? Oh, home fleet. That's what I was missing. Home fleet. Excuse me. So that fleet I was just showing was Sapphire fleet down here. Home fleet is the one that's sitting here. Dreadnought, looking for you, my friend. 5-8 plus a couple cruisers, a couple drone bombardment cruisers, 3 destroyers, and 13. God, 13 frigates. Seems to be a magic number for them. And then the big Kahuna Burger Carnarvon Emerald fleet is sitting right there. Look at that bad boy. Dreadnought, 3 command cruisers, boat ton, 7 cruisers, light cruisers, 3, drone bombardment cruisers, 2, 1 drone bombardment destroyer, 9 destroyers, and 14, because 13 wasn't enough, frigates. Jesus. Okay, so all of that combined is encircling the Borak. I think we know what's coming. Hard and fast, ladies and gentlemen. Hard and fast. Okay. That's the Carnies. Where is their capital? There it is. Okay, let's go back to the capital. Let's see what they got here. Got Den Fleet. I'm going to take a look at Den Fleet, see if we've got what I'm looking for. Yeah, boy. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the Carnies have officially entered the M era. Look at these cruisers. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 M era cruisers. So obviously they've been in the M era for at least 2 turns. They are building a 7-8 ship. Now you might say, Tony, that's the perfectly standard cruiser. What are you talking about? Except they have heel nippers. So heel nippers are a special weapon that the Carnarvons have that basically do 1 point of directed damage per N. So that little N, you notice there's a bunch of ships that have it. So when you have a battle force, and let's say you have a battle force and there's 10 Ns, they can do 10 points of directed damage per turn. Like a Mauler, 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 for formation bonus. So that is just an incredibly potent and pain in the butt capability for anyone who's fighting the Carnies. They are quite capable in that respect. Now, you can see they've got 4 of these cruisers. Now, keeping in mind that they are 7-8s, you've noticed this about the Carnies as we've progressed. The Carnarvon ships tend to have a slightly lower attack factor in exchange for the N. So when they have the N, it's like it's an 8-8 ship, except the N sort of takes away a little of that capability as far as a balance issue, and so they have a 7-8. So while let's say the The Lyrans have a 7-8 cruiser. They don't have a 7-8 cruiser with a direct damage capability like the N. So these ships are potent. And essentially, between the Carnivons and the Paravians, when they get M-Tech, it's basically like GW ships. They also got the 5-6 light cruiser. Now, the light cruiser, again, with an N, that's like, it's as if it was a 6-6 because of the N. It's a 5-6. It's crazy. Their destroyers have the N as well, and you can see they are a 4-5 ship. 4-5 versus the 5-6, and then their frigates are straight 4. No N factor, of course, with the frigates, as you can see here. So straight 4, 4-5, 5-6, 7-8. Sounds like a Sesame Street rhyme. But nonetheless, Den Fleet is in full effect in stereo sound. And what I think is going to be interesting is now that they're at M-Tech, this is just my guess. We'll see what happens. I anticipate, because of fleet cap issues, fleet cap being the total number of ships at peacetime that your economy can support, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that the Carnivon are going to engage in a series of combat operations. They're going to attack somebody, and they're going to basically expend, like ammunition, their Y ships. They're just going to burn those Y ships as fast as they can so they can make room for a fleet cap capability of having all the M ships, because the M ships have much more significant defense factors. You can see that just in the cruisers, like the 7-8 for the cruiser versus the 3-6 for the normal cruiser on the Y end. So like that's a big difference in defense factors, 2 points, and of course attack factor certainly. So it'll be interesting to see. And of course that scales across the entire spectrum of their ships, from the cruiser, light cruiser, destroyer, frigate, and so on. So I think they're going to want to eliminate a bunch of Y ships in order to, or just like spend them in use in order to make room for more M ships once they sort of, get there. Okay, so that's the Carnies. Let's slide over to our good friends, the ISC. A couple things. So again, continuing to do the search and explore of deep space. You can see that Third Fleet here has discovered a Riemann faction, Partha. Let's just take a quick look at the Partha. It's a Riemann faction, so Parthian Parliament. I'm assuming that's Atlantic Fleet. Yeah, okay, so that's these guys. So they have their Y-era ships. You can see they have a Y-era Dreadnought, command cruiser, 3 cruisers, a commando ship, 6 destroyers, 12 frigates, and a tug. So there's some possibility, some capability that they've got there for sure. Let's pull up the ISC. Where are you? Named echelons, because that's how much is like in this neck of the woods. Okay, so we got Law Fleet, command cruiser, light cruiser, a bunch of frigates. We've got Home Fleet, Judge, and Justice. Oh my God. So Judgment, cruiser and a destroyer. Justice, 2 cruisers, light cruiser. And let's pull up Home Fleet just so we can see it. Here we go. Cruiser, 2 light cruisers, bunch of destroyers, frigates, and so on. We got Enforcement Fleet down there. Enforcement is a cruiser and a destroyer. Providence Fleet. Providence is a command cruiser, destroyer, frigate. So it's interesting. They've got small task groups of ships scattered around to be able to take, and as I remove the ships, take all this stuff here. And you can see they got bases and stuff that they're building along the way. Notable that they have transferred a YDN to the Borak, and that YDN will go and do stuff. We see a Raider in the background here, different from the ISC because it's yellow and red, not purely yellow and black. And so the only other thing to look at for the ISC, really, I'm going to go back to their capital in a second, is this little wormhole guy. So they finally explored the space on the other end of the wormhole. You can see they've got a tug and a frigate, and then they've got a Destiny Fleet. So I closed that tab just a little bit too quickly. You can see here, Destiny is 2 command cruisers, a cruiser, 3 destroyers, 5 frigates, so 8 frigates, 3 and 5, and then a prime team. So enough, certainly, to be able to defend this against anything that's sort of in the neighborhood. And I imagine they're going to build a base and then a YDK, and they're going to fortify that side of the wormhole, because why wouldn't they? The wormhole is so close to their capital. Why wouldn't you do that? Totally makes sense. But speaking of their capital, let's take a look at their capital. And their capital is right here. So you can see they've got 3 CLMs, 3 DDMs, and 3 FFs sitting there, which looks like a full build cycle. Again, a bunch of Y ships on the YDK. Command cruiser, 2 frigates, 2 crippled frigates. I'm sure those will get repaired in a second. And then Integrity Fleet, ISC, named echelons, Integrity? Oh, Integrity. So we got a DN, 2 light cruisers, 6 M destroyers, and then 6 frigates. So if you add what's there, we've got a total of 9 frigates, 9 destroyers, 5 light cruisers, and of course a DN. So it looks like from the build cycle perspective, the ISC are only really able to build at this time. This will change with time. Light cruisers, destroyers, and frigates, looks like they're heavy hitters. The cruisers and the command cruisers and maybe a dreadnought are a little bit further down the line. We'll see how that evolves. Okay, that's the ISC and the Carnivon. Let's switch track and go to our good friends, the Rock. Can you smell what the Tholians are cooking? Here we are. You can see Home Fleet with Commander Lassard. Again, Police Academy reference. Home Fleet, let's take a look at the Tholians. And we're going to cruise our way up to the Kzinti here, because, of course, the Kzinti and the Tholians are stirring the pot with each other. There we are, Home Fleet. Ooh, damn. Okay, a couple of very interesting things. Let's just move the stack so we can see what's going on. Stack attack. Okay, first, can you see the big difference? The Tholians have entered M era. You can see the Tholian cruiser, early M cruiser, the CM, is a 6-7 ship. 6 attack, 7 defense. Now, we know the Tholians have crappy ships when it comes to attack and defense factors. A 6-7 is really not comparable to most other M-era ships of the cruiser class. But the Tholians have some special abilities that make it the difference. So, cruiser, 6-7. We've got the destroyers, 3 of them. They are 12-15, meaning they are 4 attack, 5 defense. That is par for the course with other factions. And then, of course, their frigates, which are the patrol craft, are 3-4s. Again, slightly lower in attack factor than some of the other factions. But if they can pinwheel and they can web, you've got some really cool capabilities there. So we've got a bunch of Y-era cruisers, 6 of them. We've got a bejesus 39 destroyers, Y-era, 14 patrol craft, and then another 13 of the CPCs. So you combine those together, that's 27, because these guys can all pinwheel together. 27 plus 39. God. So that's 66 plus another 6. 72 ships just in the Y-era right there. Wowzers. Okay. That's just that fleet. Holy Dinah. Okay, let's take a look down here. So we got survey happening around the edges. I imagine the excitement's going to be a little further north. We've got 2nd Garrison, 3rd Fleet, all that business as we scroll up. And then, woo, what do we see here? Okay. There is a ship doing a little bit of exploration searching. Here we have Marquee Fleet. Let's take a look at the Kzinti Marquee Fleet, since stuff is getting real between the Tholians and the Kzinti. You can see they have a collection of their strike cruiser. Now, this is their early M era cruiser, 5-7. You might note that it's quite comparable to the Tholian cruiser as far as strength, right? So 5-7 versus what was our Tholian home fleet? So Tholian home fleet, the 6-7. So they're very comparable in the sense of the strike cruiser and the Tholian cruiser are in the same league as each other. In fact, the Tholian cruiser is better, which is interesting. So you can see Marquee Fleet has, what was it, 7? No, 6 of those strike cruisers. And then we have an FFM, a tug, who's, I'm sure, upgrading this base, and then a YFS. So let's just take away the ship for a sec. Oh, Ooh, interesting. So not currently upgrading the base. The base is complete. I'll be interested to see if they're going to build that into a YDK, which if things are going sideways between the relationship there, I imagine that's going to happen sooner rather than later. What else do we have? We have a derelict in Kzinti space. I'll be interested to see how they recover that and what it is. So we scroll up, we've got some more commercial convoys happening between the Federation, it looks like, and the Kzinti. There is a commercial convoy heading down. Daniel making the comment, almost everyone is in M era now. Daniel, by your calculations, who's missing? Okay, let's take a look. So as we scroll up here, we can see, obviously, trade routes. I think the Federation is looking to trade with the Tholians, and if you get in the way of their trade, there might be some tussling. We can see we've got some... Oh. Now that's interesting. We have a M-era frigate from the Feds in Kzinti space. Now it's got a diplomat and R&D team. Question for our GM. Normally, special teams can only be on. I think the technical rule in the F&E rule set says those special teams can only be on cruisers. I think at some point, I'm not sure if we codified it, we said that you could have a team on a smaller ship, like a frigate, but 2 special teams? A diplomat and an R&D team? Something to think about. Interesting. Okay, as we scroll up here, we can see that the Kzinti did engage in, as we take away the ships here, we did engage in some crushing of Parthius. That was right here. And if we pull... Oh, that's interesting. So we've talked about that news already, but it's been annexed for 4 turns. Interesting. Orbital, it looks like it was just recently attacked. So where did the attack happen? Was it at Orbital or Parthius? Perhaps we're getting some disinformation from the Galactic News. I don't know. Prime teams are limited to size class 3 ships. No limitations exist for R&D teams or diplomats. That's the difference. But okay, we should have a discussion about that for rule changes in the future, potentially. Maybe it's worth it. Maybe it isn't. Scrolling around the top, look at this collection of strike cruisers. We've got CLMs. Ooh, okay, so this is interesting. We've got CLMs. So the light cruiser for the Kzinti is a 4 attack, 6 defense ship. Very interesting. So they're obviously able to build those. Obviously, we've got the FFMs. They're 3-4s. Note the Scout. They have a 2-4 Scout. So this is a Scout built on a frigate platform, but nonetheless, Scouts. Yes, Daniel's saying it was Orbital that was attacked, not Parthius. So a little, I believe the Galactic News Network will be publishing a correction to their most recent story. But note the cam. The cam for the Kzinti is like the CAE for the Borak. The cam is a cruiser in the M era, but there are other better cruisers that come later. And you'll note when you look at the sort of the iconography for the design, the cam is more similar to the Y era cruisers of the Kzinti. Now, for those of you who are big SFB nerds or like really into the ADB lore and story, somebody tell me why that's the case. Like, what is the history behind the CAM for the Kzinti versus the other ships that'll be coming a little bit later? Anybody know? Throw that out there, see what happens. And then, of course, they got the strike cruiser. So their M-era cruiser is a 6.8, which is notably a little bit less, significantly less than other folks. However, the CAM is comparable to the Tholian cruiser, which we saw was a 6.7, and the strike cruiser is a 5.7, so they're all sort of in the same ballpark. But the big differentiator here is that the Kzinti now have scouts, and that'll be a big game changer. Very interesting. I'll be very interested to see how this goes. So the Kzinti are morphing into a very dynamic faction, I think, not only because of their military strength, now at 100 ships, Their military strength, their economic positioning, and of course, what they're building and what they have in their MSET. So very, very interesting. Keeping in mind, those Klingons are coming. And of course, the Lyrans are right across the border too. So lots of interesting stuff. Not to mention what's going on with these Federation folks. Okay, I'm going to slide over to the Hydrans. Let me switch my location of my head. All right, so let's talk about the Hydrans. Hydrans, it would seem, are not yet at MTech, question mark. Let's take a look at New Fleet. Of course, finding their ships, right, is always the challenge. Maybe they've already hit MTech, but they're hiding their ships. Sneaky, because they're Hydrans. They're sneaky. Okay, so New Fleet doesn't have them. So the name betrays it. We got Expeditionary Fleet and Third Fleet. Let's take a look at these. Expeditionary Fleet. As you can see, we've got a YDN command cruiser, destroyer, and a couple Vols. So those are the frigates sitting on the border. Third Fleet. Similarly composed fleet without the DN. So a couple of command cruisers, 2 instead of 1 destroyer, and a single Vol with the prime team. So these guys are sitting on the border, I would imagine, guarding against, shall we say, the ever-approaching blue wave, if we're going to call it that. As we go up further north, we can see continued exploration along the fog of war hexes, and, of course, the trade route established between them and the Federation. So the Hydrans now have 2 minor factions that they're trading with. You can see that branching off to the south and to the east. The northern route takes them to the Federation, and the western route takes them to the Paravians. Now, the western Paravian route is going to be a little obstructed. We'll talk about that in a second. But basically, that's what that looks like. So the Hydrans, so the Federation are at MTech, the Kzinti are at MTech, the Tholians are at MTech. The Paravians are not at MTech. Well, we'll see if they are or not. I don't think they are. So Hydrans and Paravians so far are not there. Who else we got? ISC are at MTech. The Klingons are at MTech. The Carnarvon are at MTech. Next down, the Lyrans are at MTech. The Borak are at MTech. We talked about the Kzinti. We talked about the Feds. Yeah, the only 2 factions out of the 10 in this game that are not yet at MTech are the Hydrans and the Paravians. Now, one of the things about MTech, or the introduction of these of any milestone technology, is that everyone graduates into it a little bit differently. Like we talked about, the texture, the color, the flavor of the game. So, for example, we talked about the Kzinti having certain ships early, not other ships. We've talked about them in the context of the Borak. The Borak have been basically building destroyers and cruisers where they're frigates. The Klingons started off with D6s. Now they have D7s, but they've been at MTech for a while. We don't see cruisers yet from the ISC, but we see everything from the Lyran. So like I say, there's this spectrum of different introduction dates and different experiences depending on the faction and the player. All right. Now, let's take a minute and talk about I think we've talked about Federation. Oh, we haven't talked about the Federation. Let's go into the Federation. So you can see this little stack of green ships right here. This is the visiting envoy of the Andromedans. Now, there's a slight typo here. This particular this particular tug, Federation tug, you can see there's a blue tug there. That tug has, as it was described, is an ever-expanding gas cloud, meaning that it's been destroyed. So we have a number of ships here. Wow. So I'm not sure what the names are anymore. A Viper, I don't know what the INF is, but the INF has, so it's got EW, it's got 6, which I'm assuming is fighter factors. It's got an S, which means it's subject to shock. And then it's got a 5 attack and 16 defense. Okay. Then we got the Vipers. Now those are like frigates, I guess. So they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those at 4/4. We have the Rat, which I'm assuming is some kind of ground assault ship because of the G factor. We've got the COU. Is that like a Cougar? I don't know. Or I'm assuming it's all snake stuff. Oh, Infestor. That's what it's called. Okay. What's the COU? It looks like it's a scout of some type. It's got EW and 1/4. And then there's the BUL. It has the satellite ships. Okay. It has the U, and then the 2-4. And I'd have to go back to the rules to understand what the U stands for. Anybody out there, give me a quick recap of what the U stands for. But yeah, there's a U there. I'd have to look it up in the rules because I've never used a faction with a U. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. All right. So, what else we got here? So we on this border, like you say, or like we were mentioning, the trade route has been established. Rattler is what the rat is. Okay. We have an ISC commercial convoy coming through the wormhole here, making its way to the homeworld. Okay, we'll go back to that chat in a second. Yeah, very, very sort of exciting. The Federation is establishing itself as the ultimate trade hub, which is ridiculous. I say in frustration because that's what I wanted to do with the Borak. I wanted to be like a trade empire, and then everyone wanted to kill me. Boo hoo! Pity party for Tony. All right, let's go to the top. On the East Coast, we can see that the Federation is continuing to expand. They are building a YBS here. Why? Because they're going to move into this space. So here's an interesting... so obviously the Borak can't do anything to stop the Federation expanding and taking territory from the Borak. Literally nothing we can do. However, I would imagine that the Lyrans might have something to say about that. So how quickly can these... how quickly can the Federation get up there? I don't know. We'll see. How quickly can the Lyrans get down there? I don't know. Let's see. How is this going to work? I don't know. Will those two factions get into a tussle because of the competition for resources? I don't know. We'll see. Be very interesting to see how this develops over time. Let's go to the... whoa. Oh, dear. Take that back. Okay. Let's slide across. Okay. At the top, you can see here, of course, we got the trade route. We've got a task force Cosnet, and that's it. So let's take a quick look at task force Cosnet. I'm pretty sure it is very little. Cosnet. There we go. YCC, YCL, YFF. Boo. No M ships. We've got the M frigate here taking some special VIPs. Oh my goodness, excuse me, across the border. We've got Ally Fleet 1. Let's take a quick look at Ally Fleet 1. I'm sure it's exciting. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, they have built the OCAM. So the OCAM is the old cruiser M. So I'm not sure what the exact history is, but basically the OCAM visually looks like a CLM on steroids, just like a beefier hull. So it's a 7.8 cruiser, basically right on par with everybody else. We've also got the old survey ship here, which is I'd be curious to know if this ship has EW. I want to go out on a limb and say that it has at least 1 point of EW, but it's a survey ship. You can see it's a 4 attack, 8 defense. We got a number of the CLMs here, so we've got 2 CLMs. Very interesting. And then 3 DDMs and 3 FFMs. So this is particularly interesting because we'll get into this into a second. These bad boys are here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They can get, yeah. I see an interesting series of events that can potentially occur here. So we got the this fleet here. And then we've got this tug, which is building this into a YDK. And then you've got this YDN here with a frigate. So it looks like the Federation are busting their way into Paravian space. And at the same time, of course, up in the north of the Borak. So the question I would be curious to know is, what are the intentions of the Federation? Are they just sort of preparing for a defense, so to speak? Of, they want to make sure that the Paravian or that the Borak don't make their way up into Federation space. Sure, except that they are now pushing into what is Paravian, quote unquote, and or Borak controlled space at this point. So they're pushing in and they're sort of starting a fight, kind of. Why? very interesting to see how this evolves and what is going on in this respect. I imagine there is some chatter between the Paravians and the Federation, and I think there is certainly the possibility, although not a certainty, that the Federation could enter into the conflict with the Borak in a way that could, at the very least, distract the Borak from what they're doing with the Paravians, and maybe working together, the Federation and the Paravians could even push back the Paravians, the Borak, to a point where the tide could shift, possibly. The question is, how quickly and or easily will the Borak be able to eliminate all the economic and potential capacity of the Paravians to do anything one way or the other? I don't know. It'll be interesting to find out. Another interesting thing to ask is, if that's going to happen, will the two ally? Because, for example, if they were allies, then if they're allies, I'm just thinking, obviously, way too hard for this. If they're allies, the Paravians could support expeditionary ships from the Federation into their space. That could be a significant change in the dynamic. However, because of the economic challenges around what's going on right now with the Paravians, I don't know that they would have the economy to do that. So anyways, very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay, so that's the Federation. So ally fleet here, military convoy, tug. We've got a bunch of ships here. Or maybe these guys are setting up to attack these guys. I don't know. They got a good trade route with them. Like I say, I have a feeling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think ally fleet is going to get itself in a position to be able to attack this wormhole and cut the Borak off. I think that's sort of what may or may not be happening. We'll see. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so that's the Kzinti, the Federation, the Hydrans, the Tholians, the Klingons, the Carnarvon, the ISE, the Lyrans. The only factions we have not talked about yet are the Borak and the Paravians. So let's go back to the chat real quick, knock that out, and then we will jump back into what is going on with the Borak base busting and the Paravian existential defense. Okay, so let's look at the chat. All right, so let's go to Daniel was saying that the Infestor has 6 hangar spaces for satellite ships. Satellite ships come in 3 sizes, small, medium, and large. Medium ships take up 1 hangar space, small 0.75, and large 1.5. The BUL was the Bull Snake. Thank you, Smitty. Daniel says, theater transport with some expanded abilities. Okay, right. So that's good. George Duffy says, that's not a convoy. It's a vanguard to invasion. Possibly. This is Andromedan Force is going to build a base. Ooh. Oh, okay. So this Andromedan Force is going to build a base. That'll be interesting. I think OSR is Scout Survey, somebody says. Daniel, OCAM was an experiment to build a CA with the same design philosophy as the old CL. While it was as powerful as the more famous Fed CA, it did not have enough space for future upgrades. Historically, 2 were built and then killed by the Kzinti. Smitty says, where Fed YDN is... What? Where Fed... Smitty, we gotta work on our structure here, grammatical structure. Where... Fed is within 4 hexes of Borak wormhole back north. Okay, so I think what he's trying to say is that the Federation YDN is within 4 hexes of the wormhole, and that is true. However, couple things. I don't think the Federation is going to take that YDN and attack the wormhole. Why? Because assuming that there are ships there, and if you will note, so a couple things. The Borak move first in initiative because of the economics. So the Borak go first, then the Feds. So there is a likelihood and a possibility that there will be ships there, for example, at that YDK, that will prevent the YDN, because it's a YDN and 1 frigate and a prime team. Now, granted, YDNs are powerful ships, but even if there was nothing at the base, the YDN and the YFF alone, I don't believe would be enough to blow up the YDK. They could damage it and they could cripple it and they could screw it up, but they would not, I don't think, be able to take it out completely. Add another frigate into the mix? Maybe. But as of right now, I don't think that 3-ship constellation is going to be able to take out a YDK. Maybe not, but, you know. YDK's have EW. It's got 16 defense factor with obviously 4 SIDs and then 2 more on the crippled side. It's got an 8 attack, which is, at this point, 8 versus an 11 attack. It's very similar numbers that'll come out on the attack rolls. Yeah, I just don't see that working out. And the prime team has to be on the YDN because it can't be on the YFF, and it can't contribute to the combat factor. So, yeah, it's a 9 attack, 12 defense against a 8 attack, 16 defense. So yes, it could move onto the YDK. I don't believe it's going to actually do anything. And yes, it would be a SSC combat. And again, based on the EW and everything else, I just don't see there being a successful outcome. Maybe they do a SIDS or something. But here's another thing to think about. They'll move, and let's say they attack, but then they're out of supply. They can't retrograde. They can retreat, but they can't retrograde, and they'll be stuck. And that's a DN. Like, why would you waste your DN without a solid know that you're going to take out the YDK? Yeah. Burn says, seems to me the Federation is maneuvering to spank the Borak. Without a doubt. That's what it looks like to me. But we'll have to see. We will have to see. Yeah. Anyway, let's jump back in. Let's talk about the Borak and the Paravians and see how things are going. Here we go. All right, ladies and gents. So we are in the top part of the map right now. This is the Borak being encircled by everybody else. So as we talked about before, when we were talking about the Lyrans and the IC and the Carnivon, we've got the is affectionately referred to as the Borak Bone right here, which is the area that the Borak control. Further south, we have the southern section of Borak space that is, it would seem, slowly but surely being taken over by Lyran and potentially Federation forces here in a bit. But the action, Jackson, is down here on the in the Paravian space. So we've talked about the progression, right? So in the last turn, there was 3 approach battles that were fought over the new Paravian capital. And so there's a couple things. Maybe the Feds have 5 supply. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Even if they had 5 supply, that doesn't get them where they need to be. At 5 supply, they're outside the range of, like, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hexes. They would have to have 6 supply to be able to attack, retreat, and then retro, and they can't do that. So let's talk about this. So we've got Vulture Fleet was defending the capital. Let's pull up, where is it? Paravian. Bird Fleets. Vulture Fleet. Okay, so there was a battle that was fought, and as you can see here, a YCA was crippled, and a total of 15 YFFs were crippled, and 3 were destroyed. So, interesting. That leaves them with 19 frigates and 7 cruisers, more than enough to defend. But there's a couple other little things that are happening. Let's talk about the ships that were damaged. In the battle, there was a pursuit of the crippled ships that the ships that they crippled, and they destroyed 1 DDE. But as you can see here, all the cripples have got retroed. So we have 4 DDEs were crippled, 1 destroyed, and then there's a CLE that was crippled as well. But the rest of the fleet is still here. So we got Takesis, Red Dragon, and Green Dragon. Let's pull those up just so we can see. Borak, Green Dragon, Borak, Red Dragon, Borak, Takesis. Okay, so you can see that this constellation of ships are the ones that are right here. We've got 2 crippled frigates and then 2 non-crippled, 3 DDEs, 4 CAEs, another 2 in Red Dragon along with another DDE, so 4 and 6 respectively, and a YCC. A tug with a total of 7 YFFs and 4 Carnarvon YFFs supporting. So that's what's right on the doorstep and what's going on there. Now, here's an interesting little thing to think about. Let's take away the ships real quick. You notice something? There's the capital, and just for, you know, Paravian, where are you? Paravian capital. Okay, so in the capital, Paravian capital, they have 24, which is their 3 threes. So 3 to let's brain 8. Thank you. There's 8 PGBs there, and there are 12 white PGBs here. Now, we're going to talk about this in a second, but as of right now, today, this is what they have. And then, of course, they've got a YDK. So, YDK, PGBs, basically, the reason why I'm highlighting this is that there's the YDK and the planet, which is the supply point. They've got this supply point here. This planet was devastated just recently, as you can see, and as a result, it is no longer providing supply. So, if we think that, let's assume that they have now graduated to 4 supply, because for the longest time they were at 3 supply. But worst case scenario, let's assume they've reached 4 supply. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So they can reach out to here, and this is all they can get. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then, of course, they've got a major planet, which provides them 5. And I think with the attitude adjustment that gives them, hold on, operations, no, diplomacy, no, economics, there we are. A major planet with a positive gives them +1. So it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. They have 13 EP that's accessible within the bubble of 4 supply. If it was 3 supply, just by, you know, contrast, there would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then, of course, the 6. It gives them 11. So that would be 11 EP they would have access to here. However, when we bring the ships back, there is some interference. So anywhere that there is an enemy fleet, let me try that again. So when you have 2 opposing ships, when it comes to supply, if they are both adjacent to a hex, supply can still pass through. If they are in the hex, supply can pass through. If it's the enemy fleet in a hex, you can't do supply through that fleet unless it's a battle hex and there's another fleet there. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. So Vulture fleet can influence 1 hex radius around it. So this hex and this hex, right? There's no ship on this base, so it can't reach out and block anything here. So this tug blocks, and I'll just, can I get a marker? Can I get a marker? Warp trace. No. Police. No. What's a good, oh, disrupted. Look at that. That's a great icon. We can use that. Okay, so let's just put that here. Boop. Can we just land on the, why is it being difficult? Delete. Why is it being difficult? Let's go raid. Raid. Can we go raid? There we go. Raid. Can I change this? Increase? Increase. I'm going to try and pick a color. Okay, let's just use white. It's a little bit easier to see. Or is there another color? What kind of interesting stuff can we get here? Blue. Green. Let's use green. A little bit easier to see. Okay, so this ship is blocking supply here. Oh, actually, now that I say that, this ship here is influencing this hex as well. So this hex is not, I'll just put that there. So this hex is open. This hex is open because of this ship here. This hex is open because of this ship here. This hex is blocked. And we'll just copy that. This hex is blocked. I'm going to go overboard here just to block, just to illustrate this point. This hex is blocked. Obviously, this hex is blocked because there's a ship in it. Increase. Oh, shit. Undo that one. Undo it. Okay. Clone. That's what I wanted. There we go. This hex is blocked. Vulture Fleet impacts this. There's nothing to impact this. These are open. This is open. This is open. Okay. But Blue Fleet also will disrupt. Clone. Will disrupt this. And this. I know this is painful. It's so slow. Okay, so we've got blocking here and blocking here. Okay, now why did I do all that? Let's take away the ships for a sec. If we look at the bases, assuming 4 supply, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Colonies do not provide supply. There is a gap between the supply nodes, meaning that there is not supply to the rest of the network. There's no supply to the rest of their network, even if they had 4 supply. So then let's look back at, if we bring the ships back, if we look at the disruption here, they can't get this resource. They can, if they have 4 supply, assuming 4 supply, they would have to do a little bit of a dance to get to this one. So it'd have to go 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4. Sure, if they had 4 supply, they could get to this one. So if they have 4 supply, they have 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. That's 4 plus their 6 is a total of 10 EP. That's it. That's all they got. They got 10 EP. Now, if we look at the total EP for the Paravians, they have a total economy of 30. If we look at the rest of their economic stuff, if we assume 4 supply, and again, I'll just take away the bases or the ships real quick. These two connect, this base and this base. But you can see there's 9.5 EP collected here, which would tend to suggest, assuming that this turn it doesn't change, that they're still at 3 supply. So if there's 3 supply, this northern section is isolated from this collection over here. If we want to give this base as much EP as possible, it's going to take these 2, and then everything else south goes to this group. So if we assume 3 EP based on the isolated supply network that's going on here, bring back the ships, that means this one is blocked too. They can't get to it. So 1, 2, 3 plus the 6 gives you a total of 9 EP at the capital. Now, why am I going through all this business? I'm talking about this because we've got to a point now where the don't want to do that. The Paravian homeworld is isolated, and increasingly so. Increasingly isolated to the point where it cannot economically support the attrition or the repair and the building and everything else that it wants to do, and that's going to become an issue long term. Whereas, of course, the Borak have more capacity to do that. It's not perfect, obviously, but there's more capacity to build and get stuff in there. So the sort of the plan here is to be able to isolate the Paravian capital and maybe, we'll see, through a process of attrition, grind them down. Now, here's another thing. One of the things that's been discussed, and this is a discussion at this point. It is not a hard, fast rule, but it's an observation, something that hasn't been addressed, and at this point is a discussion. So let me preface that. As I noted, so the Paravian, let's take away all the ships. So this was the Paravian homeworld, and as you can see, it is a big circle, like a major planet, with the label home on top. Homeworlds are their own unique planet type, just like we have colonies, minors, developing planets, medium planets, major planets, and of course, homeworld planets. Now, we can come up with a narrative reason as to why homeworlds are what they are, but homeworlds are a unique planet type. Homeworlds provide up to 10 EP, which is why I was talking about 6 EP for the major planet, because they provide 5, and the attitude adjustment can give you as much as a +1, which Happy Plus gives them. So we've got a home planet, and then a major planet is where the new Paravian capital is. Now, why do I ask this question? This is a question and a discussion at this point. We'll have to see what the conclusion is. Okay, so a homeworld planet has a maximum economic output has a baseline economic output of 10 EP. Great. It can hold up to 20 ground bases. And if you will note, if you add it all together, and it's hard to tell because of the numbers, but PGBs are a 3 attack, 3 defense unit. 3 divided by 24 is 8, plus the YPGBs have a 1 attack, so you can see there's 12 of them. So 8 plus 12 is 20. So there's 20 ground bases on the Paravian capital. Great. Fantastic. Except that if it's a major planet, which is what it is, major planets, according to our player sheet, only have the capacity to hold 10 ground bases. So for example, if you're on a resource, you can put 1 ground base on it. Fantastic. If it's a colony, you can put 2. If it's a developing planet, which is that little planet with a dot in the middle, like this one down here, you can put 4 ground bases on it. A minor planet, which is the tiny circle, and I'm trying to see, I don't see a minor one real close. Oh, there's one over here. You can see this guy down here is a minor planet. You can put a total of 6 ground bases on that bad boy. And a medium planet, and we've seen a medium planet here or there from time to time, but a medium planet is the big circle with a little circle underneath. You can put a total of 8 ground bases on that. Major planets can take 10, and homeworlds can take 20. Fantastic. Great. Why am I raising this? Well, I've done some math about attacking this new Paravian homeworld. And in the past, if you watched New Worlds, you know that the Klingon player, this guy, didn't do anything about ground bases or defenses of his capital, and as a result got smashed when folks came through and caused all sorts of problems. I did not appreciate, understand, or really have a good context for how potent and powerful ground bases can be. Boy, oh boy, have I learned something different now. After doing the math on what it's like to get to try and attack a planet. Now, I attacked the Paravian homeworld when it had 20 YPGBs on it, and that was a tough haul to begin with. But as you can see, the Paravians now have PGBs, which is the M-era version of a planetary ground base. And they, instead of being a 1 attack, 2 defense, are a 3-3. Obviously makes a big difference. However, and this is the issue in the question, and this is why protecting your capital is so important. So one of the things we've come up with or asked the question recently is, in the context of a game like this, when you have a capital that is lost, and we had a video earlier where I talked about the rules around that. So in the standard F&E rules, there's this thing where you relocate a capital, whether it's by force or by voluntarily. There's a process that goes like 6 turns that happen while you're rebuilding your capital. Sure, no problem. We don't have that process in this game. It was snap your fingers and you can relocate your capital that turn and start building slipways and all that stuff right away. No problem. Great. That's the way it is. That's the way we're playing. However, if that's the way we're playing, the new capital is on a major planet, and that major planet can only hold 10 ground bases. And as you can see, there's 20. Why am I raising this as an issue? Well, if there were 20 ground bases on this planet, it's going to really draw out the amount of time and energy it takes to take it out. Which is, of course, you want to give the defender an ability to defend themselves and sort of play it out. But essentially what we're creating is a dynamic where the citadel or the castle is being sieged, but there's no way to take it out completely just because of the math. Like, the math of it makes it really hard to take out that position. And so what ends up happening is this slow grinding process of taking out all the surrounding resources and like basically putting it under siege, right? But if we are playing a game where the desired outcome is some degree of speed of execution and play, and you want to be able to take somebody out because it is a war game. So when you take somebody out, you take them out. what we're creating here, and we experience this in New Worlds as well to a certain degree, is we have a dynamic where if a player reaches a point where they can take out another player, you can still take them out. And arguably, the Borak in this case have done that. They took the capital. They hold the capital right now, the previous capital hex. However, the problem is that we've got a situation where the defender makes it so painful that you're grinding out the attacker, and after an attacker takes out another opponent, the recovery from it is horrendous, and puts them in a position where they are so incredibly vulnerable potentially through war fatigue and other things, that they can be sort of like taken advantage of by the other players. So, what am I painting out here? Well, one, we want to create a game where there is an end destination. We enjoy the first part of the game. Let me switch to the different chat here. Stand by. Right. So we want a game where we can build. In the early part of the game, there's a lot of excitement and investment, and it's fun to play because you're expanding, exploring, and building your empire. And then there's this second phase of the game where you start bumping into your neighbors, and there's the logical sort of in team forming, they call it storming, storming. Oh my goodness, why can't I remember it now? Anyways, storming is like early phase of the game. Forming, storming, norming, performing, and dissolving. So in that storming phase, you're sort of sorting out your borders and how you're going to get along or not with your neighbors. As we saw earlier with the Borak, the interaction with the Lyrans and then the ISC, and of course the Carnivon, that was part of the storming phase, right? But then you get into a phase where actually players are on the verge of getting eliminated from the game. And don't get me wrong, we want to create an environment where you can defend yourself and you can, have a fighting chance. In this particular example, as has been noted, I think many times, as the Borak were invading Paravian space, there was this lag almost, like several turns. Was it 5? Was it as much as 5? There was a significant amount of time where the Paravians didn't respond. And by the time they did, the capital was essentially vulnerable and under attack, and the results happened as they happened. But now we've got a point where essentially the Borak are dominating the Paravians. The Paravians are unable to defend many aspects of their space, but we actually can't take the capital because it's so hard. Now, should it be hard? Of course it should be hard. But again, just basing everything on the rules that we have, right? Like, we can change the rules. We can change it so that, we can make capital assaults and all that kind of stuff more dynamic, more difficult. We can do that in the future, no problem. But for this game, as we have it now, we have different categories for homeworld and major planet, and that is a different definition from the capital. You can move your capital to even a YDK. So, for example, one of the things you can do, we talked about this, I think, when we were talking about the relocation of a capital idea. If your capital falls, you relocate your capital. That happens immediately. As soon as your capital falls, the beginning of your next turn, you relocate your capital. It's called continuity of government in the context of the rules. That location can be any planet or base station. In the context of this, YDK. Like, it has to be a star base or like something that big. All right, so it could be a YDK. Fantastic. But if you built on a YDK, you can't put 20 ground bases on a YDK. You can't. Like, there's no space for that. Just like on a major planet versus a homeworld planet, if they're different categories, the homeworld can hold 20, the major can only hold 10. Just like the minor can only hold, or the medium can only hold 8, and the minor is 6, and so on and so on and so on. So, why am I raising all of this? Well, from the attacker perspective, I want to be able to actually attack and potentially conquer or take out that planet. So, should the Paravians be allowed to have 20 ground bases on their major planet that is the site of their new capital? It is not a homeworld. as a category of a planet? Or should they be allowed to have 20 ground bases, because in the context of the terminology homeworld and capital, those are synonymous? I would argue they are not synonymous, because of obviously you could relocate your capital when you're doing the continuity government phase to a YDK, and that would be a completely different scenario. Or you could relocate it to a minor planet or developing planet, and those planets would have the limitations associated with those planets, and so on and so forth, and yada yada yada. So anyways, I put that out there not as a discussion. That's it, as a discussion. I have my own particular views, but I'm totally biased because I'm the attacker in this situation. The question is for you, what do you think? Will the GM, so Daniel, in this context, will make a decision about that question in this context, and that decision is the decision. That decision is the baseline, or that's the end of the discussion for the purposes of New Horizons. Whatever he decides, and that's it. That's clear. And it's not like, it's not a power trip, it's not an ego thing. He's the referee, and the referees have to make calls, and based on the rules that we have in play, the referee will make a call. Bang. So he'll make that call. However, going forward for future games, what do we want to do? We've already talked about, we've had a discussion on our Discord channel about the dynamics of what we created here, because normally capital systems have multiple planets in them, and so there's a multi-planetary attack thing. There's procedures for multi-system attacks. And we found that incredibly cumbersome and totally problematic when actually the logistics of processing turns in the context of this game. It became an incredible pain in the butt. So, as a way to streamline the execution of the game, we broke apart those capital systems into 3 hexes of essentially the same thing: a homeworld, and another planet, and a colony or something. Like, there were 3 planets of some size and or shape in that formation, and they each occupied their own hex, so that we wouldn't have this same problem. Easy? I think we've had the discussion, and we are likely to move back to the multi-planet system for future games. However, we have a new way of being able to dealing with the logistical issue and constraint around processing those combats and facilitating turn execution. So we have some solutions there. But for the purposes of this game, and based on what we said and what we decided and sort of way things are, that's the discussion that's going to be had between, I imagine, myself, the Paravian player, and the GM. And whatever the GM, Daniel, decides, that is the decision. Just so we're clear. All right, I see some chat. Let's talk about it. Lost Muskrat is here. Matthew Landers. Sounds like to me there should be, at minimum, several turns before a major planet could get to full homeworld ground base allotment. So that's a very interesting... well, Daniel responds to that. He says, there are, Matthew, you can only build ground bases at a small fixed rate. Yeah, you can only build 4 per turn. So as far as building the ground bases, yeah, it took some time to build those ground bases. But of course, the question is, how much can you actually hold there? So one of the things that's interesting about the rule as written in the standard F&E rules is over the 6 turns, you have to spend, I think it's 15 EP per turn to establish your new capital. And it takes 6 turns, or in the context of our game, 3 years, for you to get that new capital up and running. As far as like, with all the bells and whistles of a capital, like slipways and stuff like that. But the reason why that exists is because you're rebuilding all your slipways and you get everything back that you had before. But it's the same cost. And because you're in the standard F&E game, you start the game with a fixed set of what you can build, like slipways. That 6-turn period is you building up the capacity to get back up and running with slipways and all that other stuff. You could argue, if you were going to use that rule in a context of a 4X game like this, you could argue that if a homeworld is a unique planet type because of the long history of industrialization and population growth and all those other things that make that planet particularly dense and industrious and productive, hence the 10 EP and everything else, that it has the capacity to be able to hold the 20 ground bases, like 20 different, planetary defense locations. A major planet doesn't have that same industrial, historical, or population background. It has something better than a minor or medium, for sure, because it's a major planet, but it doesn't have that same history of like industrial infrastructure investment. So if that's the difference between the category of a homeworld versus a major planet, sure, I get it, no problem. It's like I say, it's got centuries of potentially millennia of industrial construction and building that out. A good example, well, it may be it's not a, what's a good, so for example, Earth in the Starfleet universe, or like in the TOS era, right? It's got this long history of obviously the entire human history, but as the Enterprise, whether it's TNG, TOS, or whatever, they go out and explore and they encounter these other civilizations, they come across other industrialized nations that are major planets because they have the natural resources, the physical size of the planet, or the size of the population. But because those civilizations may not be as long in the tooth or economically and technologically advanced as Earth is, they don't have that same industrial base. They don't have that same capacity to be able to pump out, whatever it is. So, I mean, we can come up with a narrative reason A or narrative reason B why these things occur, and you can create a fiction to explain anything. But in the context of what we're discussing, the question is, how does this work, and how do we want it to work in future games? So let's put aside the situation that's in New Worlds, or in New Horizons rather, and that'll be something I'll have a discussion with Daniel, and like I say, he'll make a decision and we'll abide by that decision with a big smile on my face. I say that with all sincerity. But what do we want to do going forward? How do we want to manage this idea of a home world as a category of a planet? Because that'll still happen in a 3-planet system. And or, how do we want to manage that going forward? Big question. Not an obvious answer, but something nonetheless that we can discuss in the comments of this video, if you've stayed with us this long, or something that we can discuss for those of us who are on the Discord channel. We can have an ongoing discussion about it. A friendly, fun, respectful conversation, no sniping allowed, and we'll have that good thing. Because at the end of the day, what are we here for? We're here for a good time, not a long time. We're here to have fun, as Journey said. We're here to have fun. And just have a good time together. So that's what we're doing. And, it is what it is. Okay, Big Slow Target, let's read out some of the last of these comments. So Big Slow Target says, you could also argue that 20 ground bases are buildable just because the political power of the central government is greatest at the capital. It is just a ground base, after all, not infrastructure. I guess it goes to the question of what constitutes a ground base, or like if you were to flush out the details of what constitutes a ground base, because of course they have to build phaser 4s and everything like that. So would a ground base be the equivalent of a Mount what's the name of Shinan, the headquarters for NORAD in North America, by example. Is it a bunker with so much building and infrastructure that it can house a planetary defense phaser system and so on? I don't know. I don't know the question. Or I don't know the answer, rather. I just asked the question. Burn Vicer says, if I were a GM, I would consider relocated capitals to have a bonus to maximum ground forces predicated on planet size. Would that work? Well, let's ask that question. So let's say, for example, you didn't have any major planets at your disposal, and you could only move to, let's say, a minor planet or developing planet. Still planet, still fits the category, but it's just a different size. So would you be able to relocate to a minor planet and then have all the same benefits of a homeworld? Now, if we want to break down those categories, they are income, so the industrial capacity of that planet, 10 EP. Does that mean that you could move your capital to a minor planet and then over some period of time, or maybe right away, that planet goes from being a 3 EP planet to a homeworld planet that produces 10? if that's possible, sure, we can have that discussion. And if it's providing the same economic benefit, then it could also provide the same infrastructure, like planetary ground bases and other things. Because I would make the argument that they're somehow connected, in the sense of your industrial capacity will be connected to your ability to be able to support and facilitate that many ground bases, or even just have the industrial capacity to build that many to begin with. You know what I mean? Yeah, good question. Big Slow Target. Maybe the ability to build slipways is in zero time is probably a realism and a game balance issue. Yeah, I mean, like, if we use the system that we used in New Horizons in future games, by example, whereas as soon as the capital falls, you could relocate your capital and build slipways right away. If we were going to do that, then we could certainly do that. That would be an interesting. Like, you can build slipways right away, but the slipways are not connected to the industrial and or defensive capacity of the planet down below, since slipways are built in space. So that's an idea. Blair, hey Blair, am I Blair Ondrachek? Am I saying that correctly? Ondrachek or Andrechek? Either way, Blair. I think it ultimately depends on whether you want to be a player. If you want. Let me try that again. I think it ultimately depends on whether you want the player to always be able to recoil and stay in the game, or is this just a slow death? That's a really good point. And I think that's what I was trying to get at, but I didn't explain effectively. So in previous games, we've had the situation of the slow death, which is there is no realistic way for a player who's getting, beaten down, for them to be able to come back, for a variety of reasons, whether it's their inability to engage in a successful diplomatic outcome, either the attacker isn't willing to do it, or the defender is just not saying the right things, or whatever, or this, that, or the other thing, all sorts of different ways and reasons that could occur. And then in that situation, you're putting a player in a position of a slow death. And what does that mean? What does that translate into? Well, obviously the slow death method means that you have a player who is essentially forced to suffer the pain and agony of knowing that they're going to lose, but having to play it out regardless. Now, arguably, the player could give up, surrender, good game, arguably they could do that. But from the attacker perspective, there's no mechanism, no binary option, light switch kind of thing, that the attacker can reach a certain point and force the defender to surrender, right? And essentially the defender could create a circumstance where they are forcing the attacker to grind out their win, causing irreparable harm and damage in the context of the game to that player, so that they will never be successful in the game going forward, like a Pyrrhic victory. And if our purpose is fun for players, then I think from the defender side, I think quick and decisive deaths or eliminations facilitate that. My personal opinion would be that it's not pleasurable for anybody to go through this slow death scenario. They may derive some sense of evil glee out of forcing a Pyrrhic victory, so to speak, for the attacker, but I think that it doesn't facilitate overarching fun gameplay for everybody if that's the mechanic we have, or if that's the dynamic we have due to the mechanics. Whereas if we had a decisive end for players once a certain thing happens or what have you, I think that facilitates fun in a more effective way. It reduces the suffering of the defending player who's losing. It increases the stakes for both sides, and when that tripwire is reached, or that switch is switched, then terrible metaphors. Then we get there, right? And the winner gets to accept or celebrate the fact that they won that, and move on to the rest of the game. Now, we've talked about this in the context of potential future games. Maybe a capital kill is a kill, and that kills your opponent. So, like, the decapitation idea is a victory condition, so to speak, or a losing condition, in the sense of if your capital's taken, you're done. But again, these are all discussions and ideas we're floating at. We're just floating these out here. Okay, so Big Slow Target says the board. Did I miss one? I missed one. So I got to go back to the chat. Stand by. Stand by. Okay, Blair, Big Slow Target. The side effect of recoiling and staying in the game is that wars are eternal struggles between two parties, though. Right, and I don't think that statement, that the effect of recoiling and staying in the game is that I would argue, when we play a game like this, we do not want wars to be eternal struggles between two parties. We want them to be a struggle, and we want there to be stakes, but just like in a poker game, right? Maybe a bad analogy, but we do play poker from time to time on our Discord channel. No money involved, just playing the games. So when you play poker and you go all in, if you lose, you lose. Now, you may have an ability to buy back in, sure, but when you go all in, that's a decisive end for that player. They are making a huge gamble, and if they lose the all-in moment, they're done. And you can do the slow trickle, like grind a person down to the point where they have nothing, but it's for the defender, or like in the poker metaphor, the defender is incentivized to go all in so that they can make it back, or get back into the game, so to speak. They can slowly win back their money or win back their stake in the game, right? But if you lose those all-in moments, you're done, right? Like in poker tournaments. Big Slow Target says, the Borak did explore the Battlestar Galactica option. Take what you can and bail. A system for enabling that might help quality. That's an option. Like, we'll call it the Battlestar Galactica rule, the BSG rule. Is there a rule for you to essentially take a bunch of EP and or ships and just run into the void and see if you can do something? That might be a possibility, depending on how, like, especially at what stage of the game things happen. So that's an option. Devin Dean, see the history of war in reality. Might be the attacker needs to come with some diplomatic option they may not have realized yet. That's true. Don't get me wrong. Like, I appreciate that perspective. But when we're looking, and this is based on experience, right? So based on experience of these games, not reality, but rather these games, in the sense that the real world of geopolitics and global warfare is not this game. This game has similarities to some degree what real world conflicts look like, but this is a game, and the game mechanics are not in any way representative of what actually happens in the real world. So, in the context of a game, and knowing game and thinking out of it from a game design perspective, we get to choose, in this context, what we're going to do, and when we decide on those features that we're going to include, what is the outcome we want? What is the desirable state of play that we want to create for players and GMs? That's the question I would ask, and we can come up with various solutions, but that's it. Big Slow Target says, we want short, victorious wars. And I would argue that statement, short, victorious wars, that's what we want. I think that's probably what we want. We want conflicts of any type, like whether it's like, we want, so short, victorious wars. Keeping in mind that in this game we have a mechanic called war fatigue, which is you can accumulate, over the time that you're at war, you accumulate these turns of basically economic penalty that you will face once you pass a certain threshold. And they're cumulative, and you can work them off, but it takes a long time to work them off. For every war turn you accumulate, it takes 2 turns at peace to recover from that single war turn. So you could be in a situation where the defender creates an environment where they are just again, grinding it out and creating a situation where the attacker just has to like throw everything they can at the attacker and grind it out. And in the process of doing it, because the defender is holed up in their quote-unquote castle, metaphor, the process of wiping out the rest of their territory is so onerous and takes so long, and the defender, and I use this as an example because this is what we saw in the last game, the defender is unwilling to even enter into negotiation for anything resembling a peace. That's not an option they are willing to entertain. They would rather die on the sword, cause you irreparable, like a mortal wound through these war turns, than surrender or come to some kind of peace agreement. Now, that being said, in that same game, New Worlds, we saw the reverse of that. There's a video on the channel where we talk about the 3 steps to an invasion or something like that, and it's got these step 1, step 2, step 3 in the thumbnail. I invite you to go look it up. And in that video, we talked about the setup for an attack, the attack, and then the consequence at the end. So you had war goals, if you want to call that, like strategic goals that you want to accomplish. You accomplish those goals, and then once you accomplish those goals, you throw out an option to the defender and say, hey, you could either do the total death kill option, you could do the negotiated strategy, or the golden bridge for them to walk across. And I can't remember what the first one was. There were 3 options. Anyways, now I'm going to go back and watch my own video. But either way, there's those 3 options. So do you provide them the golden bridge to walk across, or do you provide them the total death kill, or the third option? Now, the thing is, there are some players who are able and willing to do that. They are able and willing to play that game with you. And there are some players who just are not willing to even give you an inch out of resentfulness, or just like they're bitter about the fact that they're losing, or they just want to stick it to you, or they figure if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. They create an environment where that kind of thing doesn't happen. Now, could you create a mechanic that would force a diplomatic resolution? Possibly. I don't know what that would look like or how complicated that could or would be, but you could create a mechanic or like a rule within the game, whereas if this series of events, or the step 1, step 2, step 3 happen to you, then you must reach a negotiated settlement. And so that might get you to a point where you have to go to peace, and that would limit your ability to attack another player, or if you're defending, cause them this Pyrrhic victory or whatever. We could do stuff like that for sure. That's potential option. But I would argue that like in the New World example with the step 1, step 2, step 3, we did that successfully. And in that dynamic, the Klingons were attacking the Carnivon. The Carnivon in that game had previously done the exact same thing to the Klingons. The Klingons set up the attack, executed the attack, and then offered a peace treaty and alliance to the Carnivon. It's like, we beat you back. We could have this long drawn out fight. It's going to hurt us both, or we could work together and be allies together. And so that was the path forward in that regard. We made that happen, and away we go. So, that's a potential option. I will say, as a player, I've reached out diplomatically to the Paravian player. Static. Or not necessarily static, more like F you, static. So, but I say that in a respectful way. Maybe it wasn't intended that way. But anyway, regardless, I've reached out to the Paravian player, and I've gotten a very clear "don't talk to me" response. All right, what do we got? Devin Dean, see the history, war real. Okay, I want short, victorious battles. And that, ladies and gentlemen, are our comments for the day. Okay, so before we carry on and do other things on our wonderful Saturday, thank you for joining us here on this wonderful Saturday, whatever time it is. And if you're catching us on the replay and you've been with us for 2 hours and 40 minutes, oh my God, it's crazy. Thank you. If you haven't already, be like Scott down below there. Hit the subscribe button if you've been here this long. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Tickle that YouTube algorithm just the right way. But here are the 3 things I would ask of you. If you're this late into the video, then maybe you would like to play with us. And if that's the case, write in the comments of this video that you would like to do that. Or you can head over to Coffee, and if you're a Coffee donator, or if you're on the Coffee Discord tier and you're donating to us, and you're part of our Discord community, you get first dibs on being able to join the next game. I will say we are in the midst of mapping out what the next iteration of games are going to look like and when we're going to launch them. That's a work in progress. No clear announcements for that yet. But if you are interested in playing in this game, or a game like this, then we are looking to find players to be able to do that. Second thing, if you currently are a knowledgeable Federation and Empire player, we are looking for people like you who would like to or be interested in running a game like this. We talked about referees. We're looking for referees to be able to run this based on a knowledge of the F&E rule set and, of course, the custom homebrew rules that we create. So if you are in that ballpark or in that camp, in the sense that you like to play F&E and would be willing to play a 4X version of this, and you like being a GM in that context, again, comment below or send us a message on Coffee, and we are really interested in talking to you. Third thing, okay, you've been watching it this far. We're 2 minutes and 40 minutes into this live stream. Tell 2 friends. If you like all things Star Trek, F&E, turn-based strategy, or just wargaming or role-playing games in general, reach out and let people know that this thing exists. There's lots of there are tutorials on this playlist, and there are other shorts and other videos that aren't the live streams that you can take in and digest and see if it's something that you'd be interested in, at the very least watching and potentially participating in. But like I say, tell 2 friends. We are currently at, as of the time of this recording, 431 subscribers. We are looking to get to 500 before the end of the year. Now, granted, we're a niche community. This isn't like a million subscriber kind of YouTube channel, but what we're looking to do is grow a player base of individuals who enjoy to play this game, like to have fun together, and overall are positive and like to have a good time. If that sounds like you and you like all things strategy, war games, Star Trek, what have you, then please send us a message either in the comments of this video or in the you can send us a message via coffee.com/newworlds, one of those 2 things, and either jump on our Discord channel, partake in some of the witty repartee. We do run F&E, standard F&E games as in our group. We just don't live stream those. And then, of course, the bread and butter of what we do here are the 4X games that we generate. So if any of that and all of it sounds good to you, then boom! Send us a note. Hit that thumbs up. Be like Scott. Be a subscriber. And other than that, I wish you all the very best of a weekend. Have a wonderful Saturday. I will see you hopefully next week. I'll see you next week. Ciao for now.